ставши на коліно, своє полкове знамено, дивлюсь на нього я востаннє, у нез'ясованій журбі, всю кров мою, всі скитання, воно вібрало у собі, всю кров мою, всі скитання, воно вібрало у собі. Відвагу нашу нашій волі, загиблих друзів імена, читаю нашого вімолі, я полкового знамена, дивлюсь на нього я востаннє, у нез'ясованій журбі, всю кров мою, всі скитання, воно вібрало у собі, всю кров
Прийшли окупанти до нас в Україну, форма новенька, воєнні машини та трохи поплавився їх інвентар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російські танкісти сховались в кущі, щоб лаптем посьорбати довбані щі, та трохи у щах перегрівся навар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Приперли зі сходу до нас барани для восстановлення
великой страны.
Найкращий пастух баранячих отар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Їх доводи всяке озброєння різне, потужні ракети, машини залізні, у нас на всі доводи є коментар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Вони захопити хотіли нас зразу, а ми зачаїли на орків образу з російських бандитів, робить примар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російська поліція справи заводить, там вбивцю рашистів ніяк не знаходить, хто винен, що в нашому полі глухар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Веде пропаганду кремлівський урод, слова пропаганди ковтає народ, тепер нове слово знає цар.
Байрактар.
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 Yes.
The Leaf Street Army sends its regards.
О, бля! Игорь!
Hello everyone, I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 380 of the news, and it's good to see you all once again.
And of course, we're going to be covering the past 24 hours of the news of the war in Ukraine. But before we even get into the Ukraine war news, and the title that we have tonight, about the Russians losing at Bakhmut, and interestingly enough, today, there have been some changes, some very core changes to the way the Russian military runs in that area that has led the Ukrainians to not only get a breath of, I guess you could say, some breathing room overall, but they've been able to counterattack as well. We'll be getting into that here in a second, but before we get into that, I had to show y'all some news all the way across Russia, on the other side of the world, that was absolutely hilarious. The Russian Air Force has air bases that are stationed all the way in the far east of Russia. Although there aren't a lot of people who live in the eastern area of Russia, there is one major town here that the Russians do care about, called Vladivostok. And just north of the peninsula that Vladivostok is found on, there is the airfield. I don't even know how the hell to pronounce that, but it is the airfield. I was going to give it a try, but then I saw that and I just gave up. However, this airfield does house some of Russia's more modern fighter jets, and if we go over here to the storage bays, we can actually see some of them. We can see some MiG-31s, pretty neat. We can also see some more MiG-31s, pretty neat overall. But one thing that has been based here recently in the previous few months is a air wing of Su-27s. These aircraft are very similar in terms of their function to an F-15C, much like the United States uses. Here's a picture of one right here, just to refresh everyone's memory. There is the Su-57 that we actually mailed out today to the viewer that won the Su-27. Very cool, very neat looking aircraft. And also, it is, while about 15 years behind the F-15, it is somewhat capable, and probably one of the better jets that the Soviets actually produced. But moving on from that, there are a decent amount of them that were at this airfield, and it looks like Partisans actually somehow made it onto the airfield, penetrated the incredible, vast, and great security of the second best military in the world, and was able to catch one of these things on fire. And we saw the video of that on Twitter today. So let me go to Twitter, and let me get y'all this clip. This is going to be nice. So, here's the clip. I'm going to have to mute it, but you can see the Molotov being lit up under the aircraft. You can see the tire burning right there. You can see the bottom of the fuselage of the Su-27, and it looks like the fire is beginning to lap up inside of the jet and starting to destroy it from within. This is a fairly expensive jet. Su-27s are nothing to scoff at in terms of price. So let me pull up for y'all the Su-27 cost. A single Su-27 costs about $30 million, and this thing, from what we saw, never had fire crews respond to the fire, and it burned down to the ground from our information. Very cool to know, and very neat to know that this is possible for the Partisans, but the real question that we have to ask is, how in the world did the Partisans somehow make it onto an air base and catch an Su-27 on fire? Like, how do you think they did it, Matthew? Because when I think about it, and when we look at American air bases, you can't even get near the perimeter fence of an American air base without some kind of security force or some kind of local police coming out and asking you, what the hell are you doing there?
I have no idea, really.
I actually have an idea. We actually got a little bit of an interesting picture. And also, let me see. Oh, look at that. It's Street View. Well, would you look at that? They're right there. There's nothing
Wait
but
a minute, is that the security fence?
That's the security fence. That's it.
Oh my god.
They're right there. Wait a minute, hang on. Let me move further down the street.
It looks like they're trying to, like, contain cattle or something. It doesn't look like a base.
Look at this, dude. The fence is literally made out of, like, halfway cut down trees. And
there's the jet.
It's not even barbed wire, and the Su-27 is right there. Oh my god,
Oh,
all they had to
no.
do, literally all they did, Matthew, was drive down this road, nobody's on it, there's no security post near it, just pull over on the side of the road, climb over the not even barbed wire, it's literally just like wire that's strung amongst these tree limbs, and then just go over there with a Molotov and burn down a $30 million jet. That is I gotta tell y'all, that is what the second, before this war, what most people believed, the second best military in the world is capable of. They don't even have proper base security at their airfields. And when you look at this is even crazier. This is the back of a hardened shelter right here, and I don't know what that sign says. It actually looks like there's these little, like, armored shields on the ground for a soldier to fire out of, but apparently those mean nothing because they literally just climbed over straight to that dugout right there, that landing pad, and caught the Su-27 on fire and burned down a $30 million jet. I love Russia, Matthew, because if it was anyone else in the world, like the Chinese, it may be said that this kind of stuff wouldn't be happening. You know, where partisans could literally just climb over a fence and burn down one of the most advanced jets the Russians can practically use. But since it's Russia, anyone who has some alcohol, styrofoam, and a glass bottle and a dream can hop over an airbase fence and end up actually causing sizable damage to the Russian Air Force. It's the funniest thing ever. I love seeing this kind of stuff.
Remember, this was the second largest or one of the largest militaries in the world at some point, according to experts.
This, according to experts, was the country that the United States should cower in fear of and be afraid of because they were really going to give us a run for our money if we ever got in a war with them. And this is the kind of base security they're capable of pulling off. I mean, hell, honestly, if they wanted to, Matthew, they could have just, you know, gone mental and just driven the car straight through the fence because it's not like it's going to hold back a car.
Yeah, and who's going to come out to stop them? Like some vodka drunk Russian like right now trying to get them?
Ooh, blitz! It throws a grenade, it lands right under the Su-27 and blows it up. But anyways, that's the end of the clip. And also we have some additional pictures in this post right here to make it a little bit easier to find on the map, showing that road and what it looks like. They actually didn't get as good a view as we did of the Su-27 sitting over there, but that's the base security that's at the airport right outside of Vladivostok, and giving you a pretty good idea of why the Russians are not doing good in this war, because they can't even take care of basics like base security. And of course, a lot of people in the United States remember back in the day, you could drive right up to a American air base and there was almost no security. You could almost drive onto it and there was still almost no security. But we could see, and now I understand why we have a lot of security around our bases now, because if anything gets heated or anyone has any bad intentions, it's as easy as climbing over a fence in Russia to destroy the equivalent of an F-15. So with that, we're going to be moving on across... Wait, hang on. Fushikon said, doubt it could be mined along the fence line. Apparently not mined enough, because these guys just climbed right over the fence. They're like, hey, let's go commit terrorism. Oh, well, not really terrorism. Let's go burn down a Su-27 today. And it was just like, oh, okay, no big deal. But anyways, we're now going to be moving on from Vladivostok and on across Russia and back towards Ukraine, because in the area of Rostov-on-Don, or somewhere around the Ukrainian area, we saw a video of more equipment being brought in for the Russian forces. And oddly enough, none of it's good. So, starting off this little convoy, we have some interesting sights to see. First, we see one of the septic trucks that the North Koreans use to get piss and crap out of the apartment buildings in Pyongyang right there. So good to know that they are getting support from the North Koreans. In the next clip right there, you can see the MTLB with the 45... Well, wait, hang on. Let me make sure I'm correct with this. The 2M3 naval gun, I think it's 225mm guns on that. I'm not really sure. And then the Scooby-Doo van. Like, Zoink Scoop! And then we see some... I don't know what the hell those are. It looks like normal Ladas, a Ural 4320, another MTLB, another one with a naval gun, just a whole bunch of MTLBs, a Shilka, another Shilka. That is not the kind of equipment that a lot of people thought the Russians would be pulling out a year into the war. And then just a whole bunch of fuel being carried on the rest of the train. Hang on. Okay, I may be misunderstanding this, or maybe I'm not looking at the full picture here, but a train is supposed to be loaded, Matthew. The heaviest rail cars are closest to the locomotive, and as the cars get lighter, they're getting further back on the train. With the way this is loaded, from the way this is looking, they did this the opposite way around with the oil tank cars, which are usually some of the heaviest, being put at the back of the train, and the lighter cars with the tanks on them were put near the front of the train. This is
What are
going
they trying to do? Compete with Norfolk Southern or something?
I'm looking for East Palestine. We're going.
Oh god.
Oh man, dang. Looks like they're planning for another disaster on their hands. But I gotta say, if they're looking for one, I hope they find it, because that is a stupid way to load a train if those cars are not empty. We're now moving on out of the area of, I guess you could say, southern Russia, and on into Norway, because the Norwegians have also given us some very interesting news today as well. In Norway, the announcement was made by the Norwegian central government that they'll be providing NASAM surface-to-air missile units, 2 of these, to Ukraine. The United States, as far as I understand, has provided 4 of these. Let's see, 2 firing units provided. They're saying in this caption that there were only 2 provided by the United States, but as I remember, the first batch was 1 of them, and then there was another additional 1 sent, and then there was another 2 sent at some point. So according to what I remember, and I may be wrong, so correct me if I'm wrong, it may be 4 NASAMs that were sent by the United States. Regardless, whether it's 2 or whether it's 4 that the US sent, the Norwegians are sending an entire 2 additional NASAM systems as well, which is incredibly good to know, because these NASAMs, in mass, like we're starting to see them being sent, somewhere in between the number of 4 to 6 of these things will be in Ukraine, they will be able to defend incredibly well the cities around Ukraine, and hopefully shoot down a lot of those missiles before they can make their way in. Of course, it can't shoot down a Kinzhal. That's the only missile it can't shoot down. But beyond that, hopefully it will do an incredibly good job. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on from that impressive news from the Norwegians, and we have some Norwegian viewers in here, like Tangam Braigiri, who represents the Norwegian detachment of the Lee Spring Army, and I'm sure he's pretty happy to hear that his country is sending some NASAMs for the first time ever. And so with that, we're now moving on out of the international news. Let me make sure we are, and we are. We're now moving out of the international news and on into our location unknowns, because we've had a few location unknowns today. Not a lot of them, actually. Only about 5 of them. So moving into our first clip, we saw some Colombian volunteers. We have never seen volunteers for Ukraine from Colombia, so this may be the first recorded instance of such a thing. And so, without further ado, here's the video.
Bueno, señoras y señores, aquí íbamos por un pueblo y nos tomamos 2. 2 recuperamos. 2.
2.
Les quitamos armamento, le boleamos 7 tanques destruidos y
7 robados.
Y 7, bueno, robados no, recuperados. Armamento hasta la chimba. Heridos de parte de nosotros ninguno. Muertos menos. Ah, pero nos dañaron 3 tanques. Pero ninguno explotó, gracias a Dios. Pero íbamos por 1 y ya recuperamos 2. Libertad para Ucrania. Libertad para Ucrania. Aquí solamente vienen los locos.
Man, I gotta be honest with you. While this video is still going on, this guy has got a whole fade over here, man.
I was just about to say that too. That dude's got a clean haircut.
Dude, that guy walked into the barber shop, and the barber said, "You trying to catch a fade?" And he said, "Yes." Start cutting, and he gave him the sickest fade. I mean, like, that is a good haircut. Also, these guys are kitted to the nines. Look at them.
Vamos para adelante, mijo. Porque para atrás asusta.
This guy is literally not wearing a helmet just to show off the fade.
Que no pueden tomar armas y los que tienen miedo. Pero para eso estamos los colombianos, mijo.
Peruano.
Ah, y el peruanito.
Estos colombianos.
Bueno, hasta luego.
But nonetheless, really cool to see, because we have not heard or seen of a lot of foreign volunteers from South America at all, from the entire continent. And so it's really cool to see that there are some Colombians from Colombia that have traveled all the way to Ukraine and taken it into their own consideration that they would be willing to fight to defend a country, like many other Foreign Legion members have, that isn't theirs. And interestingly enough, y'all may be interested to hear this. If you ever watch documentaries about Colombia, the Colombian military doesn't operate a lot outside of Colombia's borders, but one thing that all of y'all probably know about are the drug cartels that do exist in Colombia. And those are something that the Colombian government is usually trying to combat on a constant basis. They fly a decent amount of their special forces out into the middle of the jungle in Colombia, where they try and take on the cartels, sometimes winning, sometimes losing. But it's gotten the Colombian military, surprisingly, although they don't get a lot of reputation for it, a decent amount of combat experience. Although Well, actually, I was about to say, although cartels aren't really a military, I was about to say the cartels are probably better off than the Russian military at this point. So, very cool to see that some Colombian volunteers have made it over there, and if their experience in the jungles has proven anything, they'll probably be able to take on the Russians and the Wagner unit with some relative ease, considering what they've had to deal with domestically inside of Colombia. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on from that little bit of location unknown news and on into our next one, where we saw some Ukrainian Su-25s flying overhead. And so let's take a look at this. I bet you there's music. Yep. And there goes one Su-25 firing off its rockets, popping its flares, and here comes the second one. And what's crazy is that these Su-25s are one of the slowest aircraft used by either side on the battlefield right now, and even with them being some of the slowest in terms of their top speed, these things still look like they're going 1,000 miles an hour. Really nice to know, though, that the Ukrainian pilots still take to the skies, although from what we know, about half of the Ukrainian Air Force has been shot down over the course of this war. They still take to the skies in that kind of danger, making sure to provide support to the troops on the ground to hopefully turn the tide of the war into places where they're flying. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on, but really cool to see that the Ukrainian Air Force is still in operation. And in our next clip, we saw something brand new. You see, there's been a new system that's making its rounds, and it's called the Marina. So I'm going to pull this up for y'all before we watch the clip. Marina M240. And there's this thing called a Marina, which is a belt-fed M240. This thing is, from what I understand, fairly new, and you can see it's like a 20mm Gatling gun belt that you would find on a helicopter, really for any belt-fed system that you would find on a helicopter for a machine gun. It looks like they put it in a backpack, loaded it up with ammo, and then attached it to an M240. I guess this makes it easier for the machine gunner to carry around the ammunition without having to worry about it getting tarnished by dirt or covered in gunk, or having to try and make sure that the belt is feeding properly. So it seems that it's helping ergonomically to make the machine gunner more efficient. And we saw a video of a Ukrainian soldier using it at a shooting range today. See him aiming the gun right there with a belt system. You now see him firing one at a time. It's a machine gun! Yep, there we go. Why the hell does that thing fire like a Maxim gun? Listen to that. The rate of fire is like 600 rounds a minute. Dude, the World War I veterans are crawling out of the grave. Get down, it's a Maxim gun! But anyway, that's the end of the clip. And really cool, I gotta say, really neat to know that they're getting these belt-fed systems. We don't know how many of them there are, and how effective they'll really be in combat, but one thing we can guarantee is that the Ukrainians are probably incredibly appreciative for these systems, and I bet it'll be helping out their machine gunners in the field on using these things well. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on from that little clip, really neat to see, and into our next one, where we saw the Freedom of Russia Legion turning 1 year old. On March 10th of 2022, the Freedom of Russia Legion was formed for the first time, and its first volunteers, Russian-born and technically Russian citizens, rose up to the occasion and founded and made sure that there was manpower for the Freedom of Russia Legion. What's very interesting about the Freedom of Russia Legion is that they are entirely comprised of Russian citizens only. There are no other foreign groups inside of the Freedom of Russia Legion except for native-born Russians. And they are fighting directly against their government, against their country, knowing the risks involved, and if they ever get captured, they'll most likely be executed on the spot by the units that they're captured by for betraying their country, yet they still believe in what the Ukrainians are and what they're representing to the point that they would fight for them. And what's incredibly cool is that we've actually had some Freedom of Russia Legion members, maybe I think 2 or 3 of them over the course of the entire war, reach out to us and say that they're a part of the Freedom of Russia Legion. We've actually had their official account on YouTube comment on one of their videos saying that their unit appreciates the news that we cover on here and us covering what the Freedom of Russia Legion does. And it's unbelievable to think that we've been here on this channel, Matthew, before the Freedom of Russia Legion even existed. We were here when they originally were incepted on the 10th of March last year. And we've watched them go from a very small unit where they were in training from March to about May, to now they're in Bakhmut defending the front lines and fighting alongside all kinds of nations around the world and the Ukrainians to fight directly against their own country. And I think that's incredibly honorable of them. And you've got to say that is really... It's really a step above the rest, because while a lot of Foreign Legion members, and we give them loads of credit for it, come from countries around the world and they're fighting for a country that isn't even theirs just because they believe in their cause, the Freedom of Russia Legion takes that even a step farther. They're fighting for a country that isn't even theirs, that's fighting against their own. And that's really something when you think about it, that these people believe in the Ukrainian cause and they're so against what Putin and the Russian government is doing that they would risk never being able to return back to the country they live in to stand for what's right. And I think that's absolutely incredible. And if there are any Freedom of Russia Legion members watching tonight, I don't know if there are or aren't, but happy birthday to y'all's unit. And it's definitely become one of the most distinguished and one of the most interesting storied units over the course of the entire war. With that, we're now going to be moving on into...
And also, good job to them setting that Su-27 on fire today.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, sure. I forgot. They had the little watermark on the bottom of that thing. And I got to say, great job to them, like Matthew said. With that... We're now moving on into our last bit of Location Unknown news, where we can see the Russian losses. And y'all got to strap yourselves in, because while they were able to mitigate the losses a little bit yesterday, the losses once again skyrocketed today. Another 870 Russian troops were killed over the past 24 hours, meaning that an entire battalion tactical group's worth of strength in total was taken off the front line again today by Ukrainian fire. Absolutely impressive when you really think about it, and maybe we'll get another 1,000 or so day here in the future. Moving on from that, we also saw that 6 armored personnel carriers were destroyed over the past 24 hours. Like to see it? Not really that high, though. The consistent number over about the past month has been about 10 armored personnel carriers a day, so this is a little low, but still, nothing that bad. It's better to get 6 of them than none of them. 6 supply trucks were also destroyed over the past 24 hours, ensuring that however many tons of cargo were being transported on those supply trucks, they will not make it to the front line, and they will not be able to supply those squads to help them to keep running. We also saw another 7 tanks. This is actually a somewhat decent number, and nearly entire battalion tactical groups worth of tanks being wiped out in just 24 hours time. Quite nice to see. And if we equated that into a monetary value, and let me do that real quick, because y'all know I don't do math well, so let me whip out my trusty calculator. Let's see here. 3.5 times 7. That means that $24.5 million worth of tanks were destroyed in 24 hours. 10 artillery systems were also destroyed. That's about, I would say, 2 batteries worth of artillery destroyed in 24 hours across the entire front line. 9 drones were shot down. These may be Shaheds, considering that these numbers also include the missile attack from yesterday and all the missiles that were able to that were shot down by Ukrainian air defenses. So most of those may actually be Shaheds. We saw 3 MLRSs, an incredibly high number for a single day, being destroyed in 24 hours. We rarely ever see any MLRSs being destroyed, so it's really impressive to see that 3 of them got wiped out in 24 hours. And then, of course, the one plane. That's the Su-27 that we saw get destroyed in Vladivostok, and it appears that the Ukrainians are adding that one down onto the kill sheet because it is a kill for the Ukrainians. And a huge credit to the Freedom of Russia Legion that has people inside of Russia repping the set and throwing Molotovs at Su-27s. I feel, Matthew... Bliet. I feel, Matthew, that considering that Vladivostok is still somewhat cold this time of year, I bet you those partisans weren't doing anything nefarious. All they were trying to do, Matthew, was keep that Su-27 cold during these, warm during these chilly times.
Keep it cold, yes.
Keep it cold, chill in the Su-27. But anyways, oh man. But anyways, we're moving on from that joke, which absolutely flopped because I butchered the statement. And moving on to the next one, where we saw no helicopters were lost. We did see that 34 cruise missiles were shot down, though. That's from the missile attack the other day. While that's a fairly decent number of cruise missiles, and great to know that the Ukrainian air defenses were able to shoot those down, that means that they only shot down about 40% of all of the missiles that came into their airspace. We have seen higher numbers than that. At its height, we saw about 80% approximate of Russia's missiles and drones fired into Ukraine shot down during a single attack. So this is one of the lowest interception percentages that we've seen in this part of the war. Hopefully the Ukrainians can get some more support, and hopefully they can set up their air defenses more effectively next time, that they'll be able to shoot down more of these missiles and ensure that the interception rate is far higher like we've been seeing in prior months. We also saw that 2 anti-aircraft warfare systems were destroyed over the past 24 hours, meaning that about $30 million of air defense equipment was just destroyed, or about the cost of that single Su-27 that burned down on the runway in Vladivostok. We also saw 3 Bobcat skid steers get burned to the ground in the past 24 hours as well, and I'm going to have to let Matthew take it away here because I know he's very happy to hear that.
Damn, son, where'd you find these?
I gotta say,
from Alibaba. That's the answer.
I gotta say, Matthew, I bet you Wish.com has got some Bobcat skid steers on them. I would put money on it.
We might have to look in a minute because I have a feeling they're there.
Do you think we can pull up Wish.com on YouTube?
Pull up Alibaba instead because I think they'll have them.
Let's go to Alibaba. We gotta find this out, y'all. We gotta get to the bottom of this. Holy moly! They do!
They sell whole loaders on here. Is that a model or a real deal? Because I know they like scam.
These are the real deal. These
here.
are $23,000 to $24,000.
That's nuts. Hot selling skid steer loader, 75 horsepower. Man, these things are almost exact replicas of like the John Deere ones.
Yeah, they are. But they really do sell them. So the Russians could be getting these things off of Alibaba.com. What the hell?
They just placed an order for 3 more today.
Oh, блядь. Order another 3. But with that,
How fast is shipping? Click on one of them and see.
let's see. Let's go to this one here that kind of looks like a Bobcat with a paint job and everything. This one's hot selling. And look, they even have a video of one at work.
Man, that thing will last for a solid month before it goes out.
I don't know if that thing's sweeping the street or tearing up the street. I don't know what it's actually doing.
It's ripping up the concrete, I think.
That guy's getting the camera real close to it for it to be doing that. But let's see what kind of shipping we get on this thing. Let's see.
3-day coupons, $80 off.
Up to $80 off. Let's see here. Lead time in days, 5 to 7.
Says
to be
contact supplier to negotiate shipping details. On-time dispatch guarantee. Eligible for return. What?
I didn't really like this one. It didn't have the specs I wanted. I want to return it. Okay. This is crazy. I didn't actually know they sold stuff like this. Wait a minute, hang on. Dang it, they don't sell tanks. Wait a minute, hang on, wait a minute, hang on.
They punch in tank, just the word tank.
Uh-oh. Tank military.
Weapon.
Yeah, tank military,
Yeah.
not tank top women. I feel like that's gonna go south. Sadly, it looks like they don't. Let's check out this too. Let's check out Humvee. You know, because the Chinese make those rip-off Humvees. It doesn't look like they have any of those either, but they do have Bobcats. They do have those. So, looks like we cleared that up. They actually can come from China, like Wish.com and Alibaba, straight from the website. Who would have ever thought, Matthew? The world is our oyster, and we could just go get a Bobcat skid steer from China at any given moment. I'm sure it wouldn't pass customs inspections here in America,
No.
but it's still interesting to know the Russians could get them. And also, no boats were lost today, unfortunately. But we're still waiting for the Moskva's sister ship, wherever it may be. It's in another fleet. There's 3 of those ships. One of them was the Moskva, and there's only 2 left, and they're in other fleets around Russia. Maybe we'll see one of those join the rest of them on the list. But of course, we'll just have to wait and see. But that's our casualty report for now. Very nice to see. And the numbers are quite high today, showing that the Ukrainians were able to put a whipping on the Russians, a good thrashing, I guess you could say, and it looks like the Russians will be having a somewhat rough time today. And so, we're now going to be moving on into our frontline news, which is, suffice to say, quite heavy today in activity, all the way from the north, all the way down to Kherson and Odessa as well. But before we get to all of this news, Matthew just got done taking down a poll that got 1.1 thousand votes, and a lot of y'all were absolutely clamoring to get to that poll and answer almost one unanimous thing with a runner-up. So with that, Matthew, guide us into these polls and tell us, what are people thinking and what are people voting on?
All right, so we have run 3 polls thus far, like usual. So the very first one said, Prigozhin says the Kremlin has cut all communications with the Wagner boss, and
Holy
what are your
moly.
thoughts? Dang, thank you, Spencer. Is that
Thank you,
Spencer again?
Spencer. Yeah, Spencer again.
Dang, thank you. And we'll address that in just a moment. But the poll says Prigozhin says the Kremlin has cut all communications with the Wagner boss. And what are your thoughts? 44% said this might be the big break that Ukraine needs. 14% said unsure. 23% said maybe he's lying or maybe it's a trap. And 20% said this is not reliable. Now, I don't see how saying that the leader of Russia cutting communications with Wagner would help the fight in Bakhmut any for the Russians. That just seems like it makes it look like they are really disorganized, like we already knew they were, and it just confirms it. And also, there seems to be a tactical pause in Bakhmut at the moment. I'm sure the enforcer will go over that in a minute. But I think this might be the big break that Ukraine needs, and it sounds like Ukraine might be turning things around as we speak. But Enforcer, what say you?
There is a tactical pause in Bakhmut, but stick around, everyone, because I'll be explaining that in greater detail when we get to that segment of the news, which is actually going to be before the Northeastern news, so it's going to be coming right up. So just stick around for that, and we will talk about that. But it appears that this may be the break, Matthew, that the Ukrainians were looking for. Who would have ever thought, Matthew, that the people who would screw over the Russians winning in Bakhmut would be the Russians themselves?
Yeah, and I don't want to steal like thunder for the next poll, but I have a suspicion why that may be.
And I have a suspicion why that may be as well, but I'm going to have to say it is wild. I would have to say it's bizarre, especially with the weight that both sides are now putting on Bakhmut, for Putin to start screwing over the Wagner and Nutsack in an attempt to try and do something to him. But that's actually guiding us right into the next poll, because I did see that one and I don't want to take any fire from it. So let's move on right into the next poll, because it is pretty much adding into this conversation we're having right here. So let's get on into the next one.
All right, and the next poll says Prigozhin says that Wagner will become an army with an ideology after taking Bakhmut, and what are your thoughts? 68% said he's drunk ranting again, 4% said unsure, 12% said he's upset with Putin, but unsure still, and 16% said he might be a new threat to Putin. And I have to say that the video he put out was definitely a little bit odd. I'm still not really sure what to make of it. It was kind of cryptic. He was speaking in like riddles. I'm going to say he's upset with Putin, but I'm unsure what that means. I don't know if he's just ranting or if he actually means what he says. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say I did see that video, and while that I don't know, Maddie, have you seen a lot of videos from Prigozhin, say, over the past 2 weeks or so?
Yeah, he typically has the same kind of theme to them, but this one seems a little odd because I really can't make out what he's trying to say.
Well, you know, what I was going to say, though, is that it's very interesting because he moved from making these statements and briefings in different places around Russia and usually in the sunlight to now he's in like some kind of dark basement somewhere with a white wall behind him and with a light shining on him, and then he says stuff down there. So I don't know if that's showing that he's been isolated so badly he's pretty much having to hide near the front lines to say anything. I don't really know. But I would have to say he's probably being put down because the Russians do view the Wagner and also Nutsack as a threat. Because they, like, to say that they have not been growing a little bit in popularity would be an understatement. And also to show that the Russians have put too much credit into them is also something else. If y'all have ever looked at the history of the Soviet Union and looked at what Joseph Stalin did, if anyone became popular in the Soviet Union, Stalin would have them killed. And he would say they disappeared or they were a traitor to the party, and he would have their reputation destroyed, because the guy in charge in Russia, and this goes back, and this is a massive rabbit hole to talk about Russia's governmental system, but to summarize it all down to what it is in the modern day, the Russian governmental system exists with a very strong central leader. He has to put his foot down on all of the underlings under him, and those underlings and their only job is to exploit the people of Russia that live there and get a little bit of money for themselves and then send almost all of it all the way up to the top so that way they can save their heads from rolling down the chopping block at the end of the day. That's how the Russian government works. And if there's anyone who seems to be growing a little too much popularity in that circle of underlings or out of the peasantry pretty much, those people will get killed off immediately. And while Nutsack was Putin's chef, we can't deny that, he is an underling. He's pretty much a peasant as far as the Russian social system goes. And so, considering that Nutsack is getting a little too popular out there, and now he's got a little private army that the Russians really propped up at the beginning of the war. And you've got to say, the Russians did create this monster, Matthew, because they were the ones pumping up the Wagner at the beginning of the war, hyping them up on national television, having Prigozhin go everywhere. I mean, they created this monster in a way.
They did. They did. And also, there's another poll about that, too. So we're starting to get into that territory as well.
All right,
a similar one.
So before I continue on that thought, we'll move into this next poll so that way we can see what everyone was thinking about the next part we're probably about to be saying. This has got to be the smoothest segment of polls we've had, Matthew, because we're pretty much having to stop the conversation at natural points to move on to the next part. So let's get on to that next part of the poll.
All right. And the third and final poll of the first question segment says, in Bakhmut, Ukraine says that Russia is replacing third-wave Wagner troops with regular Russian troops. And what are your thoughts? 56% said Putin is trying to get rid of Wagner and also Prigozhin. 7% said unsure. 31% said it's because Wagner is exhausted. And 5% said nothing special. It's simply normal rotation. And I'm kind of with the enforcer. I think that Putin has created this monster, and to me, it seems like he might be trying to get rid of it as well. Prigozhin has been very outspoken against Putin, a little too vocal, and people have been disappeared and also put to sleep for a lot less than that in Russia. So I think this is Putin's way of trying to get rid of him, along with his fighting force, which could potentially turn around and maybe try to overthrow Putin one day. But I'm going with the 56%. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that is probably what we're seeing happening. I'll have to go with the majority there and say that the Wagner is becoming exhausted and weakened, because one thing we know happened a while ago, it was about a month ago at this point, is that the Russians barred the Wagner unit from recruiting from prisons any longer. It's been a joke that the prisons have run out of prisoners to give into the Wagner, but from what we understand, that is not the case. There are still a large amount of prisoners to draw from in that manpower pool to be able to send to the Wagner. The thing is that they stopped them from doing that because that's a way that the Wagner has been growing significantly. And these prisoners look at Prigozhin as, from what we can understand, some kind of god, because we do not see the prisoners in the Wagner mutinying a whole load. It appears that the ones that mutiny in the Wagner are the ones that volunteered to join the Wagner, and then they figure out what it is, which is just a cesspit full of criminals, and then they don't like it any longer, and they also don't like the conditions they're in. The prisoners, however, it appears that they actually have no gripe about the situation they find themselves in, and so those prisoners are Prigozhin's, I guess you could say, force of growth, in a way. He's literally leading a gang of bandits, pretty much, and it seems as though Putin stopped him from being able to grow his bandit crew, and in that move, now all the Wagner has on the front lines is all they're going to have. There's going to be no replenishments, no reinforcements, no growth. All there will be from here is loss. Either guys getting out of the unit because their contract ends, or guys who end up dying on the front lines. Either way, the numbers will deplenish, and the Wagner unit is going to eventually cease to be important whatsoever to anybody. In fact, it'll probably disappear from our news altogether once it gets small enough and it gets disengaged from the line. So I think that is certainly an attempt. All of these things put together, and all of the three polls are showing that Prigozhin is being viewed as a threat, and the Wagner is being viewed as an apparatus of Prigozhin's to try and gain power. And this is threatening Russia's power structure with Putin at the head, considering that this peasant pretty much is starting to climb the power structure from peasant to underling to being able to rival the leader. And so the leader's making sure that that cannot go any further, and he would rather screw over the entire situation in Bakhmut, considering that Wagner is carrying a large amount of the weight in most of the active areas of the front line around Bakhmut city, and he's going to get them screwed over in an attempt to make sure that this guy does not grow any more powerful. So
Isn't that's messed up? There really is no honor among criminals like Prigozhin and Putin.
No.
He lets this guy go and get knee deep in Bakhmut, which is one of the most bloodiest battles we've seen thus far. And then right at the moment where they're about to either swing it their way or swing it Ukraine's way, abandons them. That is just, that is the betrayal of the century.
And you know, something that I find very interesting about this entire situation is that this really shows how the Russian government works. It is really an exploitative system. Because here in America, if someone, let me go back in history, because this will actually be a great example. Teddy Roosevelt is in a situation kind of similar to what Prigozhin's in, of course without the whole side of being a war criminal or anything like that. Teddy Roosevelt, during the Spanish-American War, organized a group of volunteers, and it was called the Rough Riders. And of course, many of y'all know them here in America. They're very popular, and Teddy Roosevelt is certainly a popular president. He's my favorite president. But he created the first cavalry, which was the Rough Riders. They went to Cuba, and they went down there and got a lot of the fame at the Battle of San Juan Hill. If you actually look at the historical accounts, the fame they got was really because news reporters were just completely blown away that a volunteer unit was able to ride with the best of them and go up against the Spanish, which were a dying country, but still had a somewhat competent military with some advanced technology, especially compared to the U.S. But nonetheless, that volunteer unit run by Teddy Roosevelt would end up winning during the Battle of San Juan Hill and would become one of the most popular units at the time. It made Teddy Roosevelt an incredibly popular and famous guy with the American public. It wasn't that long after the Spanish-American War. It was just a few years before he would end up, I believe, if I remember correctly, he would be on McKinley's ticket as vice president because he was so popular. He ended up, McKinley ended up getting shot and died, after a long deal that went on with that. And then Teddy Roosevelt became the president and then was able to secure himself another term, almost through a landslide, because he was such a popular guy. That is completely different from Russia, because what you're seeing right now in Russia is kind of similar. Prigozhin was viewed at the start of this war as a hero to the Russians. This guy was gathering up people from around the country. They were going out there, they were going to volunteer and steamroll the Ukrainians. And instead of the path that Teddy Roosevelt went, which was into popularity and actually climbing the ladder way quicker than he had through the rest of his life, instead, this would be similar to the president at the time, like, let's just say it is McKinley, going and having the Rough Riders disbanded and calling them a criminal group and not allowing any more volunteers, something like that. That's what Putin's doing to Prigozhin, in a way. And I find it absolutely hilarious because it shows you that, unlike America's system, which does reward exceptional, I guess you could say, popularity or performance, the Russians will put you down if you start to go against the system. So with that, I hope that does address that poll fairly well, what's going on with the Wagner unit. And with that, I believe we're on into the next poll.
That is our last one.
Oh, nice. And so with that, we're on into the questions.
All right, and moving into our super chat questions, up first, we have that tremendous $200 donation from Spencer. And thank you very much, Spencer, for that support. And also, it's good to see you once again. He says, take a question from the chat in Slava Ukraine.
And thank you so much for the support, Spencer, and helping this channel to keep on running. With that huge support, that is massive, and I got to thank you so much for helping us out. And we will make sure to take a question from the live chat, and of course, Slava Ukraini. And so, with that, what do we got from the live chat?
All right, and the question sponsored by Spencer goes to Angry Penguin, who says, Enforcer, do you think that C-Rams would be effective in Ukraine?
Yes, I do think C-Rams would be effective in Ukraine. We've actually talked about this before. C-Ram. C-Ram gun. One second, let me put that in. C-Ram gun, here we go. Or the CIWS, as it's called on a ship, which is the close-in weapon system. These things would be fairly competent in Ukraine. They do a fairly similar job to an anti-aircraft gun of any other kind. It's just that it's a minigun with a giant dome on top of it that's filled with ammunition. Well, actually, I think... Where the hell is the ammunition stored on this thing? I think that may be the radar for the gun, and then the ammo stored down there. Yeah, I think the ammo's below the gun because the ammo belt's down there. But still,
there's that drum right there that you see right underneath the barrel.
Ah, yeah, there it is, right there. I can't see it. It's like 480, but somehow you can. Here we go. There's the barrel. You can see it a lot better right there. I think these things would be competent in Ukraine, but of course, one always has to consider the cost of these things. These C-Rams are fairly expensive. So let me put in the dash in there so that way we can go down and try and get the price. C-Ram gun price. So a brand new one of these C-Rams is about $8 million a pop, or about the cost of an Abram and a half. So they're fairly expensive. The rate of fire that they have is incredibly high as well, and it costs about, I think, $50. Well, let's see here. C-Ram ammo price. Let's see here. A typical engagement could range. So an engagement with a single missile could cost anywhere in between $30,000 to $60,000. So actually, when you think about that, that's actually quite economical, Matthew, because an Iskander costs about $1 million, I believe, in a caliber, I think. No, I think it's a Scud that costs around $250,000. So, hypothetically, this thing would actually be quite cost-effective in dealing with those kinds of missiles. However, this thing does have limited range, especially compared to other kinds of surface-to-air missile systems or anti-aircraft systems. Let me go and put
And
in...
did you say it was $8 million?
From what we saw right here, a single Centurion CRAM is... Wait a minute, 3.8 million.
Yeah, I saw people in the chat saying it was a 3.8. I was like, how did you get 8? Now see, it's like
Yeah.
a dash in between it.
Yeah, highlighted right here, 8 million. I didn't see that part, so I don't know why I canceled that out, but it is 3.8 million.
Man.
Way more economical than I actually thought it was. But let's see about the range on this thing.
I used to hear people complaining, before this war broke out in Ukraine, that the CRAM was insanely expensive to operate.
It doesn't seem that it is that expensive because the actual system is 3.8 million. To intercept a single missile or anything similar is around $30,000 to $60,000. So a Toyota Camry or a Corvette in cost. So it's actually not that bad when you think about it. But I think the range on this thing is quite short. So the effective distance is 1.5 kilometers. The maximum distance is 5.5 kilometers. So it's a very short-range weapon system. I guess that's why the ship-mounted version is called a close-in weapon system, because if you measure that out on a map of Ukraine, 5.5 kilometers is probably somewhere around 3.5 miles. So that's about how far it can shoot. That would be its little radius. So it's not that far at all. A NASAMS with an 18-mile range is able to reach out way farther than a CRAM is able to, and is able to hit targets at a much greater distance. So you don't have to have as many of them as you would the CRAMs, although the CRAMs are cheaper. Still,
Ukraine has asked for CRAMs in the past, but I don't think we ever delivered.
I don't think we ever did. And I think it may be because we have to send over such a large volume of them, and maybe we don't see them being beneficial. One thing we do know is that the Russians never really seem to target Ukrainian air bases. It's been very rare that they have, and they used to do it at the beginning of the war, but we haven't seen them do that often anymore. And that's really the only place I could see these things being worth their time, especially considering their short range, would be at airfields as kind of like a point defense system for that one spot. So I would have to be honest and say, while it is certainly plausible and possible that you could send CRAMs to Ukraine, and they could be used and they would be effective, it's just that it has such a short range, it's going to be really hard to put them anywhere where they could be that effective. Well, as effective as other systems, I guess you could say. So it would be better to send them other things that would be more effective instead of a whole bunch of CRAMs that are somewhat effective on their own. So with that, I hope that does address that question fairly well. And thank you so much once again, Spencer, for the support and letting us address that really good live chat question. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next we have another super chat. So totally slipped my mind there for a minute, but we have a super chat from Spencer.
No way.
Who puts in another $100 donation. And thank you again, Spencer, for that support. He says, I'm going to order you boys an Alibaba skid loader. Shall I send it to your P.O. box? Lol.
The P.O. box will not fit that. But if you want to, you may. If you want, we will take a Bobcat skid steer. Matthew's going to have a load of fun on that thing. I don't know if the corgis will like it. If y'all don't know, Sheba is actually scared. Y'all have never seen Sheba before, but one day y'all will. Sheba is deadly scared of anything. Like fire. She's scared of guns a whole load. Like, she runs to a corner and hides whenever she sees a gun, and I don't even know why, because she's never seen what they do. I guess she just kind of knows what a gun is, so she just runs off to a corner. I feel like she'd probably be scared to death of a Bobcat skid steer, but I feel like Mr. Corgi would actually give it a try. I think he would climb in there and ride around in it a little bit. So if you want to send us a Bobcat skid steer, do not send it to the P.O. box. It won't fit. But if you want to ship it to us, let us know and we'll arrange something. And of course, I'm just kidding, but thank you so much once again for the support, Spencer. An absolutely incredible amount of support and helping this channel to keep on running. And I thank you for doing that, because without folks like y'all that send in support, and of course, any support helps us. It's incredibly beneficial to us, and we thank everyone, big or small support, for helping this channel to keep on running, because at the end of the day, it's entirely a decision on y'all's end whether y'all want to support this channel and how much y'all want to support it. Of course, and another thing I like to say, we do not want anyone to feel pressured to support this channel. If you watch this channel and have never supported, never feel like we are pressuring y'all to support us. Especially if you are in a tight financial situation. We hate when people send in a super chat and they say, I'm very stretched on cash, but here's this, because we feel awful. Because, you know, you could probably be putting that in better ways. But I still thank everyone who has the ability to support this channel and does support it, like you, Spencer, for helping this team to keep on rolling, because it is incredibly flattering that y'all find it so worthwhile that y'all support us so greatly. And not only that, y'all are helping us to keep covering this news, keep doing fundraisers and everything else in between, and I've got to thank you for that. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we're on to the final one of this segment, and then we'll be moving into Bakhmut.
All right, and the last one of the first question segment goes to Enforcer for President, who puts in a $50 donation and says, number 93, slam that like button, LSA. This is, excuse me, this is for the drone fund, and take one from the chat.
Hey! And also, thank you for the support to the drone fund. And also, make sure to slam the like button. We're already up to 1278, which is pretty nice. And also, I'm always saying, 1281, never mind. It's going up so quickly, we wouldn't really be able to do what I was wanting to do. But still, I thank you so much for the support, Enforcer for President. An absolute G! And helping this channel to keep on running. And I love your name, Enforcer for President. I would have to say, hopefully I would be a good president. Can't really talk a lot about politics or policy right now, because that's a rule that we have on this channel, is that we don't talk about that kind of stuff. But still, I thank you so much once again for support Enforcer President. I thank you for your vote in 2040 and also supporting the drone fund. We've actually gotten some tips from some people over yesterday and today. In fact, Bobby's boss also threw in a tip, and I think he's watching tonight. Well, he should be, at least from what he told me. I don't know if he is. But we actually got some tips as to people who may actually be able to help us to get a drone. And I've got to thank everyone for sending out those tips, because we went to the go-to places that a lot of people have been telling us for months. Oh, yeah, they actually help out the soldiers in Ukraine all the time. That's their whole shtick, you know, unlike us, where we run stuff through YouTube Give and it's humanitarian aid like Doctors Without Borders and stuff like that. Some people fundraise directly personally to be able to help out the soldiers of Ukraine. And so we've reached out to some of those people, and they told us no, just outright. They said, no, we're not doing that. So we were like, oh, well, that's, you know, that's kind of lame. So I thank everyone for reaching out to us and giving us some more tips and suggestions, because we will be looking to reaching out to all of these people and seeing if they can help. Because one thing we were actually told, and I found this to be fairly interesting, is that we reached out to one to give some specific details, and of course we won't get into exactly what was happening and all of that, but we reached out to a specific person, and we asked them, could you help out? Considering that that's like your whole shtick, is that you say you help them out. And they said, no, I can't. And I said, well, I mean, I can't because I don't trust him and I don't know him personally. And I said, well, I know him personally. You know, they're the guys from the 231st Battalion, and they've sent us video proof of them being there on the front lines. The hell, they've even sent us actual flags from the front lines. And I was like, you know, that's about as good as it can get in terms of knowing that these guys are legit and the real deal. And still said no. We were completely surprised. Of course, when we heard that story, we were eating at a Denny's. So we were just... We were shocked. I mean, like, we were so shocked we couldn't even finish eating at Denny's. So we just, you know, went on our way. But it was unfortunate to hear, and hopefully, eventually, we'll be able to find a way to get these guys a drone. Of course, y'all are supporting the drone fund, and if everything comes down to it, we will just get them a drone. I'll just buy a drone and we'll send it over there so that way they can take a look around the front lines. But still, thank you everyone so much once again for the support. Thank you, Enforcer for President, for supporting that. And if I heard correctly, he wanted to send it to the live chat, if I'm right.
And yes, Enforcer President did want one from the chat.
All right, and so let's get it.
All right, and the question goes to Tank and Spank, who says, if GMLRS are pre-programmed not to hit Russia, why can't ATACMS be also?
Wait a minute, read that one more time.
If GMLRS are pre-programmed not to hit Russia, why can't ATACMS be as well?
Good question. I don't really know why or why not. I guess I guess there may be some technological difference in between a ATACMS and that missile that makes it where it's not possible, but I'm not entirely sure. That's a great question, though, and I think we'd have to get someone who's a little bit more versed in the ATACMS technology to tell us why that may not be possible, or if that's just a farce and people are lying, because, of course, the U.S. government lied outright on the Abrams, saying we couldn't send them to Ukraine. This is practically impossible. And then they did send them to Ukraine. So with that, I hope that answers that live chat somewhat. I know that's not really a good answer, and I don't really know why there would be a problem with the ATACMS where you couldn't program it to do, to avoid doing something like that. But with that, I hope that is an attempt to answer that question fairly well. And thank you so much once again, Enforcer for President, for sponsoring that live chat. And I hope we answered it fairly well. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on into the Bakhmut news. We're going to be skipping the Northeast for now. We'll circle back up to it after we cover the Bakhmut news. But we have been seeing some interesting things. And the Russians have practically been stopped dead in Bakhmut, although we have seen some minor advances over the past 24 hours. And so let me show y'all. So here are the axes of advance. We've seen, and this was expected, we've seen that the Russians were able to close this gap here and move up to the Bakhmutka River. We can see that they've made it there. That was to be expected, so that's not really a considerable advance, considering that the bridge crossing further north had already been captured by the Russians, and so the Russians only had to move forward to take that ground. There were no Ukrainians left there. We also saw a couple of more movements. We can see this one here, which seems to be the Russians trying to break out on the M03 highway and move up towards Slovyansk, although they have a long way ahead of themselves to get there, and also some very difficult terrain just in the couple of miles ahead of them towards Privilia. Here in the south, we also saw a microscopic advance. It appears that the Russians are once again attempting to cross the canal. We don't really know the exact detail as to why they're crossing this canal again. They were pushed off of it just about 3 days ago and pushed to the other side. They're now over here again. So it looks like it's a back and forth amongst Ukrainian and Russian forces to see if the Russians can keep complete control over both sides of the canal. But from what we've seen and what the trends show, that may be a short-lived holding by the Russian forces on that side, considering that the Ukrainians may just push them back. Also, oh, Matthew got him. I was maybe like, oh, we got a button, man. Matthew brought out the axe and went, shh, and got him. But anyways, one thing that is really interesting, Matthew, is that we don't see any real frontline movement around Bakhmut. We did see the Russians move through a quarter of a field, but that's no real frontline advancement, and that's not on any axes that is actually important. It looks like the entire front line stopped, and we were covering a decent amount of this in the polls a little while ago. The Wagner has pretty much been cut off, by all intents and purposes, from the Russian government and any kind of Russian command. Prigozhin and the Wagner are completely on their own, and after we heard that the Wagner was stealing ammo from other units, now we're hearing today that the Wagner has also been completely cut off of Russian ammunition and supplies again, entirely. So it's very interesting to see that it looks like the Russians are now going to screw themselves over in the Bakhmut area, and the Ukrainians immediately took the advantage on the situation and started to conduct counterattacks. And we saw one of those clips here in Krasnoora, where the 2nd Battalion of the 3rd Brigade of the Azov Battalion was starting to slam the Russians in an infantry offensive. And so here's some of the clips. When you see them firing over a berm here, when you hear the rounds hitting right in front of them, you hear this guy screaming a little bit for fun. We hear the rounds still hitting in front of them and bouncing off the ground. This guy is joking around a load. Like, rounds are bouncing right over his head. He's like, hee, look at him, look at him run. We now see him firing over the berm. We hear an RPG explode near to him. Actually, it flew right over him. We now see him reloading the magazine again. When you see that his AK is jammed. Uh-oh! Uh-oh! Where are the AK fans at? I thought this thing was unjammable. I thought it ran even if you buried it in concrete. What happened? Someone's got to explain to me here. What happened? the $37 gun isn't working. That's why, honestly, I would say we need to send a support package where we just start mass shipping M4s over to them. Because any M4, even the poorest maintained M4s, are going to be better off than a decent AK.
Hell yeah. And also, they're not that hard to learn, like, at all. Like, they don't require, like, years of training or anything to use them properly.
Yeah, it only requires a few weeks. And of course, Matthew, I have to do this real quick because someone's about to say, you don't know anything about AKs. Real quick. I do. I have one. So, I had
he
to
goes around the house racking that gun all the time, man.
Wait a minute. Wait, no. Hang on. I got to do the right one. So, give me a second.
Oh gosh, he's going for a shotgun. I know it.
Okay, so, one thing I've been doing recently is I've been racking the pump on my pump action, and what's hilarious is that, and Matthew, are you okay with me telling the story of what happened today, just for a little giggle?
I don't care.
So, Matthew was in the kitchen.
Spencer again.
Oh, hey, thank you, Spencer, and also good night. If you're getting off right now, have a great night, man, and thank you so much for helping the channel keep running. We'll, of course, address that in the next question segment, too. But one thing I've been doing is I've been going around the house, and I've been, racking the pump on a pump-action shotgun. It's unloaded, of course, because it would be stupid to walk around with a loaded shotgun in the middle of your house. But I walked into the kitchen today, and I did this. And Matthew jumped like he was about to get blasted. He actually thought someone had gotten to our house, but it was just me, and it was hilarious. He jumped like he was scared to death. So that was hilarious.
Well, yeah, it's not normal to go around the house racking shotguns.
Oh, come on.
That's not normal.
It's normal for us. I mean, like, hell, you come around with that Daniel every once in a while. You're like, look, it's a Daniel. But anyways, moving on into the clip. We can now see him still joking around, round still bouncing over his head. We still see him joking. Rounds are still firing right over their head. He's still trying to fix the jam in the AK. You hear another RPG explode in front of him.
Well, these people are going berserk.
Candy Nose Twins Skid said, only in Alabama. Yeah, only in Alabama do we do crap like that. But you see them having a fun time here in the middle of this offensive. See him looking at a picture as the artillery explodes, putting it back in his helmet. This guy's just having a blast. I mean, like, it's not even like he's in a war. It's like he's just hanging out with the dudes. And I gotta say, it's pretty funny to see. Also great to know that you have such high morale still. And this guy has got to be the morale officer of his unit, because he's like out here and he's like, yeah, let's get it, number day 380, let's get him. Woo! He's just out here and everyone's like, yeah, man, let's get it. Great to see, though, and it's great to know that there are such high morale Ukrainians out there still, and that they're probably keeping up the spirits of their whole unit for sure. With that, we're now going to be moving on from that little clip from the 3rd Battalion and further down near the area of Berkivka, where we saw Ukrainian troops defending the flanks. This video was actually put out by Radio Free Europe and showing us what's been going on the northern and southern flanks, although we located this to the northern flank. Actually, this is the northern flank. Whoops, sorry everyone. So here's the clip. Ukrainian troops defend Bakhmut's northern flank from Russian attacks. These tanks are targeting Russian positions near Soledar, a city that lies a few kilometers northeast of Bakhmut. Brutal fighting has raged in the area for months, practically for a year. Russian troops are firing at the Ukrainian positions with artillery.
В бік українських позицій. Ведуть вогонь, скоріше за все, з артилерії. Ми перебуваємо
We are near Soledar.
з Солідара.
The military says it's always hot here. Russian forces claim to control the eastern part of Bakhmut, and from our information they do. These Ukrainian troops are defending against the enemy's push from the north. And when you see them going through the reloading process on this T-72B, loading in the charges, loading in the shells. We fired at the enemy's position, and we were going through the forest. You could see that the field was hard to drive on, rough conditions. Recently, 2 tanks went to fire at point-blank range, but were shot at. It's very emotional when you see their artillery firing and shells landing nearby. Still, we got out somehow. Ukrainian mortar units face waves of Russian foot soldiers. See them firing some of the heavy mortars right here, most likely 120 millimeter. Our target is the enemy's infantry. Sometimes there are light armored vehicles or tanks, but infantry is usually our main target. We use a French mortar that's been in service since 1973.
Uh-oh.
It's still being used in 30 countries, if I'm not mistaken. No, it's being used by y'all. Duh. I'm just kidding. I'm playing y'all. Compared to the Soviet-era mortars, it's rifled artillery. Much more accurate. It has longer range, and the shells are more powerful as well. The Soviet-era shells carry 2 kilos of explosives. The French one carries about 4.2 kilos. They're comparable to a 155mm shell, like you would find in an M777. NATO has warned that Bakhmut could fall within days, although I'm finding that to be a stretch. Kyiv says it will continue fighting for the destroyed city. We now see them clambering around. Ukrainian officials claim the battle for Bakhmut is pins down Russia's best units. We now see them moving some more ammo into this building, and that's the end of the clip.
You know, even though I've said in the past that Ukraine should have probably retreated from Bakhmut by now, I gotta respect like the dedication. Like, whether or not this decision proves to be an effective one or a bad one, they are like determined and they aren't giving up, and they aren't even like cracking under the pressure. They're smiling, laughing, and just going along.
Yeah, I mean, like, these guys make it look like they're in a Nerf battle. I mean, like, that's like the kind of fun that they're having with the whole thing. It's, you know, bullets are flying overhead, and they're sitting there, woo! Oh, man, this is fun. Oh, no, look, Igor fell over there. Oh, look at him. Like, they're doing that. It's crazy. Like, you wouldn't believe that folks do that kind of stuff in the middle of a battle. You know, because if people
it's just like a weekend out with the boys, basically, is what it looks like.
Yeah, it really does look like that, and it's absolutely insane to think that a lot of Ukrainian soldiers do that. Of course, there are some that have a really tough time, like, you know, with shelling and things like that, and it's terrifying out there. But they still are just giving it their all, and the morale is still as high now as it was in the original opening days and the months of the war. And I've got to say, it's unbelievable. And I got to give them a huge credit for just keeping their spirits up like this in a meat grinder like Bakhmut, because the Ukrainians are still besting the Russians in Bakhmut, but that doesn't mean that they are not taking higher losses here as well, and they're still keeping their spirits up. They're still besting the Russians, and they're going toe-to-toe with the Russians on the line and not even giving up a single inch in most areas. With that, we're now moving on into the northern areas of the Bakhmut suburbs around Yehidne, where we saw a large explosion hit the Russian lines. And there it is right there, actually. But here's the clip. You see a massive explosion in the distance and a fireball rising into the sky as the boom finally reaches the camera. Whoa! This must be Ukrainian artillery hitting Russian positions in the distance. And they are blowing the hell out of them, man. That doesn't even look like a shell blowing up. That looks like it hit something else. We hear some rifle fire also going on in the middle of the night, and that's the end of the clip, but showing you some of the artillery that the Ukrainians are bringing to the field to put up against the Russians. And of course, a very important video to show, because artillery is one of the most important forms of support that the Ukrainians have on the lines right now. And while we're always talking about abstract things at this point, like fighter aircraft and which ones will we send, artillery support is one of the best kinds of support that we can send them and make sure that they have ammunition to keep running. And so I would say that we need to ensure that ammunition is continuously supplied to the Ukrainians, along with brand new rifled barrels for the M777s and other artillery pieces, and on top of that all, sending over more artillery for the Ukrainians to use. The more artillery they have, the better, and the more ammunition they have for that artillery, even better off. And so with that, we're moving on into our next bit of news from Bakhmut, where we also saw some border guards hitting the Wagner unit inside of Bakhmut. And they hit them fairly well. According to the caption, there were 5 200s from this clip alone, which means that there were 5 guys who leaked organic coolant to the point that they took a nap. So here's the clip. You can see them looking into the windows of a building across from them right here. And we can see some heat on the other side. I can't tell if that's an entire soldier or not. It may be. And we can see it moving around a little bit. We can also see this bright orange glow at the bottom of the camera showing us that this gun may have been fired a little bit beforehand. But we're also seeing a little bit of an orange tint coming from the walls over there, so I don't really know. You see them still looking into the windows across the street. And now they're firing, and I think they're hitting them. Oh, he went moving again. They're firing again. The Russians are inside, man. They're going, me and the mosquitoes around here are low. It's the bullets are going like right through the building.
Oh, bliat, we are the mosquito.
Oh, bliat, it's the mosquito. You hear an explosion in the distance that made the gunner flinch. We're looking for the Russians to reappear out of the blinds again. And I guess you could say that while they're popping up at the blinds, they're about to be blindsided by the sniper. But sadly, the video ends. We didn't get to see really a lot, but one thing we did see is him blasting straight through some blinds on these buildings and at some Russians inside. Hopefully hitting them. So with that, we're now moving on from that clip. Of course, they'll claim that there were 5 200s as a result of this video, but I only saw maybe 3 of them at best. So with that, we're moving on to our next clip, where we saw a Russian ammo depot exploding in the eastern area of Bakhmut. And of course, I have to mute it because this is the, I think it's the funeral rave music or something like that. We can see the Russians unloading this ammo as quick as they can, though, from this vehicle, and trying to get it inside of these buildings so that way they can try and have it not blown up. But the Ukrainians are already going for it. A fire has already begun on some of the ammo. And that's it for this small ammo depot. It will no longer function, and there goes the heap. That's all that's the end of the clip. But great to see that they were able to take out one of these small ammo depots in the very eastern area of Bakhmut. We also saw that apparently some Russian soldiers, Matthew, are getting a little demoralized. Boo-hoo-hoo.
Who would have known?
Man, I gotta tell you, it's just so interesting to see, Matthew, because the Ukrainians are still holding Bakhmut, and it looks like, as a matter of fact, right now, they may even be trying to push back into some of the areas they've lost around Bakhmut. And it's just so interesting to me, because somebody out there, Matthew, was saying that that Bakhmut was going to be given up almost 3 weeks ago. They had thumbnails saying that the Ukrainians were leaving, it was all over, and of course, we don't want to call them out, but from what we've seen,
That sure does sound like clickbait, though.
it does. I mean, but we're not gonna say that because you know we're gonna give them the benefit of the doubt. I'm sure it wasn't clickbait. I'm sure he wasn't just trying to get people in on fear mongering, or possibly, most likely not. But we did see the Russians withdrawing. And very interesting, because I thought the Ukrainians were supposed to be doing this according to some sources, but we can see them right here crawling on out of the front lines, apparently completely demoralized, taking heavy casualties, and it looks like they might be taking on some more here in a second. Matthew put in the chat, Enforcer is so coy. Oh, he's so
Man, he's so coy.
Oh, man. And when you
Predator
see...
Dan said that was the most evil Matt laugh ever. That was the sly laugh from Matt. That was the mischievous Matt.
Oh, you sly devil. Anyways, when you see them get on out of there, and look at these guys, man, they are just slogging. Like, they're not even walking. They're just kind of like dragging their feet. They're like, oh, man, this hasn't been the bad
Play
way
that music behind it.
the funeral march.
Yes.
Yeah, that's exactly what they're doing right here. Man, these guys, they look like they're never coming back. And also, we actually got clarification from Eric S. Eric S. says, he said pull out. Well, I got to tell you, if they were supposed to pull out, Ukraine's pull-out game is weak because they're still there. I just realized what I just said. But anyways, we're going to be moving on. We're going to be moving on from this clip and on into the center of Bakhmut, where we saw a satellite picture of the town. We actually had this on Twitter today, and I gotta ask, did y'all peep that Twitter?
Hey, wait a minute, is this on Reddit too?
What?
This on Reddit too?
Yeah.
This picture?
Yeah, it's on Reddit. I found it.
Oh, wow. When did this come out?
About 5 hours ago. I think we had it on the Twitter
I
about 12
was well
hours
before
ago.
them.
Yeah.
They're late.
But here's some satellite pictures of Bakhmut. Here we can see in the south where the Russians supposedly are, and these front lines do seem to be accurate from what we can collect. And you can see that the Russian forces are, of course, almost being stopped dead on right near the Bakhmut River. They're not able to cross it. There's also these large fields here on the Bakhmut River in the north, which will pose a incredible disadvantage to the Russians as they try and cross that open plain, and that is going to be dangerous for them. Machine gunners could probably be set up to look over the fields and blast any squad that happens to find themselves in the open on it. So we'll probably see that the Russians attempt advances into Bakhmut City here in this high-rise area, as it'll be a little bit easier for them to get on over to the other side and maybe fit in and blend in with the buildings a little, but that will even be tough because there's really no crossings over that river in the middle of the city. So we're probably going to see that the Russian advances either have to come from the western ridgeline up here in the top left of the screen or down here in the south at the very bottom, because those are the only areas where the Russians have no natural obstacles stopping them from an advance like the Bakhmut River, and it will probably ease up the fighting and also the amount of casualties they'll be taking in trying to gain any additional ground. But you can see Bakhmut from space right here, from satellite picture, from Maxar. And moving into the next picture, we can also see a little bit more of a zoomed in picture of some of the high rises here. And we can see that the bridge here has been destroyed. Not practically destroyed, it is destroyed. The railroad bridge down here, this is actually to the north of Bakhmut. This picture on the left side is the north side of Bakhmut. This is the south side of Bakhmut. The railroad bridge was destroyed along with this road bridge as well. And we can see where the Russian-controlled area of the city is over here on the top side of the picture, and the Ukrainian-controlled part of the city here on the bottom side of the picture. And you can see that Russian artillery has been slamming the entirety of Bakhmut because not a single one of these high-rise buildings appears to be without any kind of severe damage. Moving into our last picture, we can also see, I don't really know where exactly these are supposed to be in the city, but it looks like low-density residential areas throughout Bakhmut and the kind of damage that they've sustained through the months of fighting. And of course, the Ukrainians are holding incredibly well right now, and considering the problems that the Wagner unit's running into, they'll probably be able to hold even better than before, and they'll be able to maybe even push the Russians back a little bit in the north and the south, but we'll have to wait and see if that does happen. We don't want to be too positive with that.
Go ahead.
No, please go ahead.
I'm trying to interject just so I can cue up my statement. But anyways, when I see pictures like from Maxar like that, how high the resolution are, like on the ground from the satellite, and knowing that the Americans and NATO can see that literally every day, like I don't know what time they receive it, because I'm sure the satellite has to rotate back around, but that just lets you know when our officials act ignorant about what's going on in Ukraine, they definitely know what's happening.
They have to, or there's some goofball that doesn't really know how to extrapolate information, and they're looking at that, and then they come up with the completely wrong information. One or the other. Because, I always don't want to make it seem like I don't mean to say this in a bad way, because I was thinking that might come off in a bad way, but I'll have to say it. I don't ever want it to seem like the federal government is always on top of the game and they're just looking goofy because they want to. Sometimes they just look goofy because they are goofy. But, you know, of course, give them a little bit of a benefit on the doubt on this one. The Maxar satellite, just the Maxar alone, is able to get such resolution that you can see what kind of cars are parked on the street anywhere. In fact, you can actually see that in Google Maps too. You know, we're like giving the Maxar a lot of credit, but we zoom in on Google Maps, it's almost the same resolution. You know, you can see every little house, every little car. And when you really think about that, that's crazy to think that we have that kind of graphic quality on Google Maps. Although it's not up to date and day by day.
I wonder why they won't let us have access to the Maxar satellite.
Yeah, I wonder. They're always just leaking little pictures here and there. It's like, why not just make it public information? Well, then again, I guess that gives away the advantage the U.S. military has, but still, you know.
Oh, well, Maxar is a private company, to my understanding. Anybody can contract with them and get access to it if you're qualified enough.
Oh, I didn't know that. Maybe we'll be qualified enough one day. But anyways, that we're moving
I don't know
on.
if the media gets access to it if they want it.
I wonder. It always seems as though they're getting like, you know, because everyone gives the mainstream news a little bit too much credit. Because everyone always acts like they're out there getting scoops that no one else gets, and then they show video clips that we show on our channel and also similar stuff as well, and then in a lot less detail and a lot less information. I would, from what I've seen, almost every time they've showed Maxar on the news, it's the same Maxar pictures we're getting from online. So I don't know if the news got those and then they disseminated them online and that's how we got them, because it always seems like we're always beating them to the punch with the Maxar satellite pictures and footage and things like that. But with that,
like Tristan said, it's probably just the money. The money qualifies you, and it's probably the case.
Cha-ching, cha-ching. So with that, we're now moving on into one of our last bits of news from Bakhmut, where we saw that unfortunately the MiG-17 monument, which had become a symbol of Bakhmut, had ended up being destroyed. And we can see the remnants of the pedestal and the MiG-17 that was once there, now completely destroyed by artillery barrage. Very unfortunate to see. Of course, it is what it is. It's just a monument destroyed. There's been a lot more important things destroyed in this war, like lives and families, but still sad to see that the symbol of Bakhmut has finally been destroyed by Russian artillery. With that, we're now going to be moving on out of Bakhmut and the city, and moving on down into the area of the northern Donetsk front. We haven't gotten a lot of direct video footage here, but we did see some stuff happening out of Konstantinivka. For example, a Ukrainian Strela 10 at work. So let me go to Twitter. And so, let me mute that. We see the Strela 10 aiming its surface-to-air missiles. We see one spooling up and firing, and it's on its way. Look at it go. Just look at it. It's out there trying to find a drone or some kind of an air target. And you see the Strela going through the rigors of moving around their system. We now see maybe the commander coming out of the cupola, and now it's driving on off. And he's waving at the cameraman as they drive on by. Very interesting to see. Hopefully they shot down that air target, but of course another Strela at work. We're now moving on into our next bit of news, where we also saw some Ukrainian soldiers hanging out with the Foreign Legion, which was a pretty cool crossover. Maybe one day they'll all fight together. Of course they already do.
Yeah.
And this also appears to be a training exercise as well, because they got the little safety thing on the front of the gun.
Вот это рыцарь. Как по нему? Тримай. Что по нему?
We see the Ukrainian offering the Foreign Legion members some food.
Salo, да?
Ukrainian salo.
Oh, Salo.
Hey!
Oh, man. He just got him.
О, say, заебись. Заебись.
Man, he's chewing it off like he likes it. He knows that stuff's nasty.
Заебись. Заебись, it means fucking good. Все, назовем
Ukrainian salo, заебись.
We gotta pull that up, Salo, real quick. I gotta find out some information on that. Salo. What the hell is this? This is not Salo. What the hell? Anyways, let's see. It's Eastern European food consisting of cured slabs of fatback. Oh man, here in the here in the South, if you found fatback on pork, you'd be murdered. But apparently in Eastern Europe, it's actually a food, like a food people seek out and eat. Like, look at this. This is literally a loaf of sallow.
Oh my goodness, that makes me sick.
Does it even taste good?
I see a lot of folks saying it tastes good, but I don't know.
Huh, let's see. Sallow taste. It's salty on the inside and very sweet on the outside. Huh. Okay, so that is sallow that we saw on that plate the other day, Matthew. Remember that whole plate of things that looks like pastries or whatever? That's just sallow. There's a picture of it right there.
Ugh.
I'll try it. I'll try it eventually, but I don't know. Knowing what fatback is here in the South, I'm not that big a fan of it. But maybe it's good. I don't know. Anyways, we're now moving on from that little clip. Really neat to see. And we're now moving all the way past Donetsk. Nothing happened there today. And down into Volodar, where we saw that there were 11 prisoners taken today from the 155th Naval Infantry. Aw. Looks like they didn't do that well.
Из вас. Показываем ручки, кто контрактник. Все контрактники, мобилизированных здесь нету, правильно?
Quite a lot of them.
Один? Кто? Не, все контрактники, правильно? Правильно. У кого были боевые прыжки?
And Marcia said, yes, we were all telling you it was sallow, but it was unbelievable to think that sallow would look like a little pastry treat.
42 прыжка, правильно? Плюс 23 прыжка.
Is that John Cleese?
Я понял.
John Cleese, where?
Правильно, стрибки.
The guy that was just talking right there.
Let's see here.
That guy.
Сколько?
This one?
40.
Yeah, is that John Cleese?
That looks like John Cleese from Faulty Towers.
It does.
Hello. That seemed to be a problem.
It's Basil.
Yeah, it's Basil. He's about to find the rat in the kitchen. The old guy's gonna go in there with a shotgun and start firing through the kitchen.
Manuel?
Oh man, that was a great show.
Я понял. Ну, срочка, не срочка, правильно. Стрибки есть. Так, хорошо. Сколько вы сейчас служите? Сколько вы служите?
5-й год заканчивается.
Сколько ты?
2 месяца.
2 месяца, да? Ты сколько?
5-й год заканчивается.
5-й год. Ты?
3 года.
3 года.
2,5.
2,5.
3-й заканчивается.
Сколько?
3-й год сейчас пошел.
3-й год? Плюс. Ты?
17-й год.
С какой?
17-й.
17-й? Ух ты, блин.
9-й год идет.
9-й год.
9-й год идет.
Тоже 9-й. Ты?
10-й.
Правильно.
3,5.
Понятно. Ты?
7-й получается.
7-й год. Хорошо, блин. Вы все с одного подразделения, правильно?
Нет, с разных частей.
С разных частей?
Здесь, которое было.
Так, хорошо, давайте подразделения. Какие здесь подразделения? Какое подразделение?
Меня?
Да.
155-я, я там как подписал.
155-я. Какая батальон, взвод, рота?
БМП. Вторая. Это здесь уже перераспределяли, там 24-я получается.
Угу. Ты?
Береговое 7 наблюдений, там чат служил. Прикомандировали 155-й.
Ты?
Здесь на корабле был, прикомандировали 155-й. Служил на корабле, на Камчатке, прикомандировали 155-й. С корабля 155-й бригады.
Man, they keep on going through the line. It's like a game of What Would You Do or Jeopardy or something. Like they're getting answers for them on every single thing.
Часть 401, прикомандирован 155-й, 2 декабря. 6-я дивизия надводных кораблей.
Dude, this guy doesn't look like he's been fighting on the front lines. It looks like he just came out of the coal mines of West Virginia.
Yes. Oh my god, we should go and change his name to Amerifatti in the
Really? He did!
Кораблей, войсковая часть.
He's now the Amerifatti. I love it.
6-я дивизия.
Man, I gotta say this though, it is a huge confuser to Matthew and me whenever anyone changes their names because it's like you're a whole new person for us, unless we look at like your profile picture. But I still love it though, picking up the joke and running with it. We will be trying to make Amerifatti shirts, by the way, just letting y'all know.
БПК адмирал Пантелеев. 36-я дивизия надводных кораблей, войсковая часть 81-167, корвет громки.
114-я бригада надводных кораблей, 40-94 части.
Хорошо.
Thank you, Dopey. So with that, that's the end of the clip. And it looks like the 155th Naval Infantry Brigade has lost about 11 guys today in the Volodar area. Moving even further on down into the area of Starlo-Manivka, we saw some Russians getting blown away here today as well. And the same music. We're going to have to mute it. And then it goes, and then it, you know, whatever. I don't know. I've heard the song a million times now, but we can see the little house the Russians are in. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. It looks like it had a bomb dangling on it, and it looks like the house is now dangling on a thread. And JB just said it.
Oh, man, I get no respect around here. Oh, man. Oh, man. I was sitting in a house the other day, and someone said, hey, you haven't bought this thing, and they blew it up. Oh, man, right on top of my head. Oh, it was terrible. Oh, terrible.
Someone's about to go mental about the voice. The voice sucks, man. Quit it. So we will. So with that's the end of the clip. But we can see the drone came out and did its job and blew some Russians away. We're now moving even further on down the southern front to the area of Izhnoye, where we saw the 92nd Brigade blowing up some ammo. And so here's the clip. A little quiet right now, but I'm sure the volume will pick up here soon. Oh, got that?
What in the hell?
Got that Mujahideen type beat. Let's get it. All right, we're gonna have to mute that.
Jeez.
But when you see the ammunition blowing up out there in the distance. And we can see it still burning, still explode. Oh! Nice. Very nice. Man, Mike Tyson gets no respect around here, BC Skyman. Do you understand the pain I go through to do that voice? It's like that giant explosion right there. Nobody wants to hear
Mike, you get no respect, Mike. You get no respect.
I gotta tell you, I get no respect around here anymore. Nobody wants to hear me. Everyone forgot I was the original voice that used to happen on this channel. What happened to that?
I asked Mike a question out of turn, and he wanted to know if he wanted to, do something. Oh, man, my wife asked a question of Mike Tyson out of turn. Oh, let's say she went to the pork farm, if you know what I mean. Oh, man, it was bad.
Oh, my
God. But anyways, that's the end.
Man, you're letting the PG filter slip tonight.
A little bit, but I think it's all right. Just for one night. You know, just every once in a while. We don't want to go overboard with it. But anyways, that's the end of the clip. And when you see the 92nd got another ammo depot right there. Moving even further on down into the area of Sherbaki, we also saw the Ukrainian artillery at work in this area. And so, here's the clip. You see a message written on it. It looks like they're also inside of an SPG, and they are. It's an M109, nonetheless. Nice. And with that, that's the end of the clip. But great to see that they're still laying down the fire on the Russians in the southern front. We're now going to be moving all the way out of the southern front. Of course, no frontline changes here. And on into Kherson. And while there have been absolutely no frontline changes here for the longest time, we have been seeing some interesting clips. And there it was, Matthew. I did some voices, and Jimmy Jam, he called us dorks.
Oh, man, I did some...
He's a dork.
I get no respect around here. I get no respect, I tell you. I sat there and tried to make people laugh, and I got called a dork. Oh, man, and it never got better
now
from there.
He's sitting there. He can't talk in the chat anymore, and he's yelling at the screen. Yeah. I knew they were dorks.
and you know what he's going to do? He's going to go somewhere and say, they're cowards. Because I saw someone saying that about something. They're cowards.
He's going to that other stream. That's the penal colony now.
Yes. You know, there is an Australia for the Leaf Spring Army. You misbehave, you end up going to Australia. And so I say, all right, mate, don't you talk about Australia like that. And I don't literally mean Australia. It's like, you know what? I know that someone's about to take offense to that. But anyways.
We love Australia.
We love Australia. We love our Australians. We got loads of Australians in here. And there are a lot of Australians. All of them are incredible. Every single one of them is great. Every single one of them asked me, how do you know so many Australians? They're absolutely incredible people. And I told them, I just know everything down under. I know everything down there. Anyways, we're moving on into
I love Australia. Australia's a great place. Sydney, Quokka, great place.
Yeah, I love the quokka. Absolutely fantastic. But anyways, we're now going to be moving on into the Kherson area where we saw an Osa get blown up. When you see the Osa on the
man, they
move,
got that hardcore trap music in this one.
Man, that's that like 1980s type beat right there.
Can we hear like 3 seconds of this beat?
Sadly, we can't because we'll probably get copyrighted for it. I hate to say that though. We now see them firing the M777 and the round's on its way to the Osa, and boom, kabooey, it hits the Osa dead on. I was waiting to see that one, man. I was like, man, he's about to get got, and he got got.
That's definitely a bot. Talking about Jose L1144. What kind of name is that?
That man came right out of the prison system and made that his
Yes,
YouTube
that's
account
his prisoner code.
Anyways, we're now moving on into the next bit of news near Oleski, where we saw a Ukrainian drone hitting the Russians down here as well. And also, thank you, Agent 86. I love Australia. Australia is really cool, and a lot of y'all watch from Australia. Alright, we're going to have to mute that. Y'all can hear that we're getting the music smorgasbord tonight and having to mute absolutely everything. We see some Russian soldiers over here. Also looks like there's some civilians out there as well. Well, you now see some stuff exploding in the sky? Or exploding on the Russians, I can't really tell. And also, Activista, I know you love Perth, but you know what Mike Tyson says when he wants to get a woman's purse? He says, hey, give me your Perth. And anyways, you can see that the Russian little outpost was completely obliterated over the night. And it's great to see.
I just realized what you did there.
Yeah, so that we're moving on to our last clip from the Kherson area, where we saw some Ukrainian drone attacks being committed on the Russians on the southern side of the banks of the Dnipro. That is the worst music I've heard over the war. I don't know what that is, but they don't need to play that again. But you see the bomblets hitting the house that the Russians are in and blowing the roof away. You can see some Russians on the move here. It appears that they may not know that they're being watched. We now see a Russian speedboat, something very common on the river. And you see them still sitting on the boat. When you see a bomblet on the way and blows up near the boat, not on it.
Oh.
Uh-oh, the Russian starts panicking. He's looking up like, oh, bliet! Oh, wait a minute, here comes the guy. Oh, wait a minute, they left behind the wounded man!
No! They're leaving without him. No
They're
way.
leaving!
Oh my god, it's comical.
Oh my god, it's a vaudeville routine! And then they drop him!
Oh my god.
Look, they went running off and they dropped the guy.
He fishing?
I don't
just put a line on the water?
But look at this, I think they're carrying the wounded guy that got hit in the house earlier. They go running off and they drop him! Oh my god, this all went wrong.
This has gotta be fake.
Look at this guy, he's fishing? No, he's wading his feet in the water. He's like tapping him around. Oh wait, he fell off the boat. He's swimming off now.
What the hell is going on? Why is he swimming like that?
The boat's adrift. We're adrift, Captain. He's now gotten on shore, soaking wet. Now they're both abandoning the boat and swimming off.
Is that an oar he just pulled out?
Yeah, I think it was an oar.
And then he jumped off and ran.
And now the Ukrainians are going to finish off the boat. Ooh, they got a dead-on hit right there. Oh my god. The boat sank to the bottom of the river. Oh my god.
Oh my god. That was like a Charlie Chaplin like silent movie, like Russian style.
What the hell is up with these people? There's something bad wrong with the Russians. I just don't know what the hell is wrong with them. But with that, that's the end of the clip in a great way to round out the Kherson front. And moving on into Odessa, we also saw today the Southern Air Command shooting down some Russian cruise missiles from last night, although the footage came out today. So here's the clip. See the missile traveling on its way. Reaching out over the Black Sea. And hitting its target. With that, that's the end of the clip, but very nice to see. And so with that, it's now time for us to pull up the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky. And of course, cover the speech from day 380. And I've noticed, Matthew, the speeches are getting a little longer.
Oh, really?
Yeah, now it's up to 5 minutes and 18 seconds. So with that, here's the speech.
Щойно закінчилось засідання Ставки. Головнокомандувач, командувачі напрямків доповідали щодо ситуації на передовій, загалом в захисті держави, Схід та Південь, кордон, Бахмут і наші можливості посилитись там. Наші відповіді на удари терористів, захист Херсона та громад Дніпропетровщини, Чернігівщини, Сумщини, наші потреби у боєприпасах і постачання. Сьогодні ж про забезпечення українських воїнів та загалом підтримку нашої держави у захисті від російської агресії говорив на міжнародних переговорах. У Києві з візитом перебувала прем'єр-міністр Фінляндії, держави, яка доволі активно нас підтримує. Я подякував за вже надані пакети допомоги, обговорили нові можливості зміцнити нашу оборону, зміцнити тиск на Росію. Новий оборонний пакет для України, вже 14-й. Говорили також про співпрацю в структурах Євросоюзу, про підтримку наших ініціатив щодо покарання російських вбивць. Також сьогодні зустрівся з міністром оборони Норвегії. Загалом ми досягли надзвичайно потужних відносин з Норвегією в багатьох сферах. Це стосується і зброї. Завдяки Норвегії ми посилили і нашу ППО, і артилерію, і інші роди військ. Також Норвегія започаткувала програму довготривалої бюджетної підтримки України $7 мільярдів на 5 років, яка може і має стати прикладом для інших наших партнерів. Обговорили додаткові кроки, які можемо зробити разом з Норвегією, щоб ця весна була успішною і для української оборони, і для перспектив загальноєвропейської безпеки. До речі, починаємо спілкуватися з Норвегією щодо можливостей тренувальної місії для наших пілотів. Поспілкувався сьогодні ж з представниками американської політичної спільноти, сенаторами, експертами на майданчику Американського інституту підприємництва. Це один із сильних американських think tanks, інституцій, що беруть участь у створенні політики. Поінформував про поточну ситуацію, про наші можливості зламати російську агресію, повернути Україні безпеку. Подякував Америці за незмінну і принципову підтримку, за лідерство, яке може значно наблизити нашу перемогу. Хочу сьогодні особливо відзначити наших бійців, які захищають Україну на Донеччині. Щодня вони дають вагомі підстави для подяки, дають вагомі результати для України. Морпіхи 35-ї і 36-ї окремих бригад морської піхоти, 55-та окрема артилерійська бригада, десантники, 79-ки. Я дякую вам, воїни. І окремо хочу подякувати сьогодні бійцям ГУРМО, Шаман, це Бахмут, за міцну участь в обороні міста. Дякую гармашам 44-ї окремої артилерійської бригади, які воюють на Запорізькому напрямку, вправно знищують позиції і техніку ворога. Дякую вам за це, хлопці. Сьогодні підписав черговий указ про відзначення наших воїнів державними нагородами, зокрема бійців 24-го окремого штурмового батальйону Збройних сил України. Сьогодні ж мав честь вручити мамі да Вінчі Дмитра Коцюбайла його хрест бойових заслуг. Сьогодні відбулось прощання з Дмитром, і я дякую всім, хто прийшов на церемонію прощання з да Вінчі, усім, хто хотів би прийти, але зараз на фронті, у війську, у шпиталі. І це дуже важливо. Важливо, що Україна шанує своїх героїв і демонструє світові, які люди віддають своє життя за свободу нашого народу і усієї Європи. Вдячний кожному і кожній. Згадайте сьогодні Дмитра, згадайте, будь ласка, усіх тих, кого забрала у нас ця війна із 24 лютого і з 2014 року. Вічна пам'ять героям. І ще одне. Увесь день отримую доповіді про відновлення наших енергооб'єктів. Об'єктів і мереж після російського терористичного нальоту. Харків, все ще багато абонентів відключено. У місті проблеми зі зв'язком, вдалося дати електрику на критичну інфраструктуру. Всі служби працюють, щоб поновити енергопостачання споживачам. Дійсно, героїчні зусилля наших енергетиків, ремонтних бригад. Харківська область. Станом на вечір більшості споживачів постачання електрики поновлено. Досі Не просто у Житомирі, хоча систему загалом збалансували, все ж можуть бути відключення, енергетики працюють. Запоріжжя. Робиться все, щоб захистити людей та енергосистему міста. Київ. Тепломережі відновлюються. Я дякую всім, хто залучений до цих робіт, дякую кожному і кожній, хто допомагає. Українці сильні, коли дбають про одне одного. Українці вільні, коли захищаються. Слава нашому прекрасному народу, світла пам'ять нашим воїнам, які віддали своє життя за нашу державу. Слава Україні!
And with that, as the end of the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky here on day 380 of the war in Ukraine. And that, of course, wraps up our news segment for the night as well. I've got to thank every single one of y'all so much that have been here for the news, for watching. It's been an absolute honor to know that many of y'all have come in tonight and watched this news to get the scoop of what's going on in the war in Ukraine. And if you did enjoy it, please make sure to subscribe to the channel, because we run this every single day of the week, except for Monday, at 10 p.m. Eastern Time or 9 p.m. Central Standard Time, covering the past 24 hours of the war in Ukraine in video and picture evidence and any other news that we can find. And so, thank you all so much once again. We're about to be moving into the question segment, almost an entirely separate stream unto itself in the same one. So it's kind of like a 2-in-1 combo value. So you can watch the first part, and then you can opt to not watch the second part, or you can watch both of them and get 2 streams for the price of 1. It's quite the deal, I'd have to say. I'd buy that for $1. So with that, thank you all so much once again for watching the news segment. We're now moving on to the question segment. And to move us on into them, we're going to let Matthew bring us through and guide us on the results and the questions that those incredible polls have asked. And so with that, Matthew, what do we got?
I gotta say, tonight's been a good stream. That boat video, the Russians like playing Charlie Chaplin, is probably the funniest thing I've seen in probably months. Like that's gotta be one of my favorite clips now. Like, we're going to have to like go back and make that a highlight reel or something.
Oh man, we got to.
Yes, we do. But anyways, of course, we are moving on to our polls, and we have 4 of them to address during our final question segment. And the very first one says, U.S. intel indicates that Russian agents are on the ground working to overthrow the Moldovan government. And what are your thoughts? 83% said, of course, it is expected. 7% said unsure. 5% said, is this made in confidence? And 5% said, wow, Russia is really acting out. Now, one thing I have to say is I'm starting to lose a little faith in U.S. intel, because I saw some people already disagreeing with it. This information, from what I understand, came from the White House. It did not come from the intelligence community itself. So there was several people casting doubt on it, whether or not that's actually based in fact or not just speculation. So I'm going to go with the 5% that said, is it made in confidence? Because at this point, I'm not really sure. But Enforcer, what say you?
And can we hear what they said again from the White House?
Supposedly, they say that the Russian agents are on the ground right now working to overthrow the Moldovan government, and they're trying to spark up riots, protests, to go ahead and cause disruption and disrest. Or unrest, not disrest.
I kind of doubt that a little bit. There's really no reason to believe they are or are not there. But I'm kind of doubting that at the same time, because how in the world did they get them into Moldova at this point? That would be a great question to ask. But with that, I hope I addressed that poll fairly well. I don't really know if that would be accurate or not, especially considering there's really no way to get Russians to Moldova right now. But with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next poll says the NATO-backed repo force has frozen over $58 billion in sanctioned Russian assets. And what are your thoughts? 72%, which is the most popular choice, said forfeit all assets and give to Ukraine. 16% said we can't forfeit without due process. 9% said unsure, and 3% said it's not legal to forfeit the funds. And I'm not super familiar with the way international law works in reference to seizing and forfeiting funds, but from what I understand, it's basically like you make the rules up as you go, because I'm not really sure how they've come to the legal conclusion that they can actually freeze the funds, because the people that are being sanctioned, I don't think they specify them by name, do they?
I don't think they do, actually. I'm not really sure about that, though.
They just like make a wide sweeping like sanction across like all oligarchs of Russia, and if they find assets, they seize them. But if somebody knows better, let me know if I'm incorrect. But I'm going to say we should forfeit all the assets and give it to Ukraine, because Russia started the thing, and like I said on Twitter, they should pay to rebuild Ukraine. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say the assets should be seized to help rebuild Ukraine, but at the same time, that is a good question as to how they're listing these people off and getting the assets. But at the same time, I think that if they're Russian assets in the West, and considering how the Russians are saying they're at war with us, why not just, feed into that a small amount and just seize the assets and then give the money to Ukraine? So with that, I hope that addresses the poll fairly well. And also, someone just said in the live chat, Activista actually said U.S. intel is crap. And I would have to say, also Candy Knows Twinskins also brought up a good point. The U.S. intel called the invasion and said it was going to happen. They were right on that. But one thing that I think is really funny about Activista saying U.S. intel is crap is that there is a certain channel out there, a certain person out there, and we're not trying to add anyone or start a beef or anything. Not that beef isn't good. Beef is delicious. I mean, if you've ever had roast beef sandwiches, you'll know those are great. But it's always interesting because they are always saying that's not reported by the intel. It's like, well, we have a video. It's like, does it really need to be reported by the intel if we have a video of what we're talking about? But yes, we largely rely on this channel, and this is one thing I think that we've kind of started to lose in translation over time because I don't say it a lot. My channel doesn't really rely on modern intel or quote-unquote experts in the field because, as y'all can see, experts in the field can get a lot of stuff wrong, and they've gotten a lot of stuff wrong throughout this. Rather than the war starting, which U.S. intel did get right, they haven't gotten anything else right, hardly at all. And we've been getting stuff right over here for a while, like when they said at the beginning of the war, Russia hasn't pulled out their best tech. No, they have. This is the best stuff they have. It's going to get worse from here, and it did get worse from there. They also said stuff like the Russians will steamroll the Ukrainians. Like, I remember back in the day when this is one thing I remember vividly, is when the Battle of Kyiv was going on and the 40-mile-long convoy appeared from Chernobyl to Ivankiv, and it stopped dead in the road. And I said, this is a disaster. These guys are they're about to get stomped because they're sitting still for too long. And not only that, this isn't a supply convoy. This is a combat convoy. The whole entire thing has just gone into chaos. And then everyone on YouTube was scoffing at us. And, people were coming over here and saying we weren't even telling the truth, even back then, because, oh, you don't understand. You're just like, and of course, here's the typical things that are even still used against us to this day. Matthew will know all of them. You're just a college kid. You're 20 years old. You don't know what you're talking about. And then the 40-mile-long convoy was a combat convoy that collapsed, and half of it went back to Belarus, half of it got destroyed in Ukraine, and they never set up the supply bases that everyone was talking about.
Facts.
So, U.S. intelligence is neat. I really just use it as something to look at maybe occasionally, but I don't ever base everything I say off of it because they get a lot wrong. Plenty wrong.
They do. Also, I did see folks in the chat say that in regards to the sanctions, it looks like it's on individuals from Russia. So they named the people individually, and there are also broad sanctions as well. So in that case, since they do name individuals, I would say give them their due process, but at the end result, the money should still be forfeited, or the assets should be forfeited and sent to Ukraine to help rebuild. Because, the due process can be as official as you want it to be. If we want a certain outcome, we'll get the certain outcome because Russia has broken all kinds of international laws in invading Ukraine. So why should we be so concerned with following it to the letter if Russia has broken basically every law there is?
I would agree with that as well. And so with that, I hope we answered that poll fairly well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
All right, and the next poll says, now that Xi Jinping has effectively become China's leader for life, will anything change? 57% said China will become more volatile, 8% said unsure, 23% said nothing major will change, and 12% said nothing will change at all. And I think that when you put no checks whatsoever, there were already not many checks on Xi's power, but now there are literally none because he can stay there no matter what happens and whatever he does. I think China might become more volatile. They might start flexing their foreign policy a little bit more strongly. And I think we saw that, and I'm going to address it in the next poll. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say, is probably not going to change anything, because when Mao was leader for life back in his time, it didn't really change anything then. Mao wasn't really leader for life. He was for life in a way, but if you read modern Chinese history, while he was technically the leader of China, more so in his later years of life, he was only that in name. Really, other people at that point were already leading China themselves. But with Xi kind of being in his prime, I guess you could say, in his age, I think he's like in his 40s or his 50s. He's got a long road ahead of him, at least 20 years before he starts to enter that phase. So for the foreseeable future, for the foreseeable decades coming up, he will be the guy leading China. I actually think it's going to make the Chinese a lot more predictable, in my opinion. It's not going to lead to a more volatile situation. It's going to lead to a lot more of a predictable situation, because, you know, like the saying goes, Matthew, with boxers, if you fight the same person enough, you get to learn their moves. We deal with Xi enough, we're going to get to know his exact strategies and diplomatic plays that he employs time and time again. And each time they happen, we're going to get better at responding to them and finding out ways to combat them and defeat them.
Yes, probably true. You know what's really messed up? Like, we know China is not like a free and democratic country. We've known that forever. But the vote for Xi was literally 2,952 to 0. There was literally zero opposition.
Really? Wait, hang on. I got to pull up this vote. Vote for Xi Jinping. Let me pull that up. This is from the AP News. Let's see here. That's wild.
I mean, he's effectively a dictator now. Like, he is legitimately could be classified as a dictator instead of, you know, a Chinese president, like the media likes to say.
Well, who the hell gets voted in unanimously ever? Like, even in a one-party system, who the hell gets voted in unanimously unless there's some kind of underhanded threats going on there to make everyone vote a certain way?
It sounds like a Russian referendum.
Also, Matthew, I like that one. Oh, you got him. This is a great channel, but it does not communicate to Ukrainians fighting and dying while we have 2 battle flags from him. Cope.
He's been saying that junk for like 20 minutes. Been like putting in 10 comments saying the same thing over and over.
Yeah, it's like if we didn't communicate to him, how come we got the artillery shell fired for the Lee Spring Army, and how come we got the battle flags? I guess we just got those out of thin air. But anyways. Moving on back to this, I think it will make the Chinese more predictable. I don't think it's going to make them more unstable. But this is really interesting. They didn't last that long with the whole entire, you know, Communist Party system of voting in their leaders. It's once again going, as all communist countries go, into that authoritarianism where one person's in charge until they're dead. So with that, I hope that addresses that fairly well, and we are on to the next poll.
All right, and our last poll says, today, China brokered a new peace deal between Iran and Saudi Arabia, and what are your thoughts? 60% said that's bad, this is China's new strategy, 22% said unsure, and 18% said, peace is good in all instances. And I would say in this instance, peace is not good, because Iran is currently one of the biggest supporters of Russia's regime, and they're sending all kinds of weapons to Russia as well. And Russia, we found out today, is also sending American weapons that they captured back to Iran to be replicated, which is obviously not good for our national security. I'm going to say this is very bad, and it's kind of like China's new strategy. I think they're going to try to go around creating peace everywhere under the guise of good intentions. And in reality, what they're trying to do is make new allies and friends to turn against the U.S. So they can become more powerful in their region. But Enforcer, what say you?
Did you notice something about the geography of Iran and Saudi Arabia, Matthew, considering what we've talked about with the Chinese for a while on this channel?
They both have access to the water.
They're both on the periphery of the Indian Ocean.
True.
And also, Iran is going to be a part of the Silk Road project that China has going from China to Turkey. And it has to go through Iran. So it looks like that little move that they did today is trying to help solidify themselves as a force of good with these two countries, and trying to grow that sphere of influence around the Indian Ocean, and also trying to realize the Silk Road project through Iran. That appears to be exactly what they're doing right there. It's not new at all. This is just a part of their Indian Ocean strategy, and I would say while peace always seems good, with the Chinese brokering it, that's not good for us. And we need to make sure that the Saudis stay on our side. Although, the Saudis are questionable. A lot of y'all know that. Like, hell, I'd be scared of going to Saudi Arabia right now because I might end up being called to an office and then stabbed to death and cut into bits. But anyways, moving on from that statement, which was a true story, I would not really be a big fan of the Chinese starting to grow their sphere of influence into the Middle East, because then that means we've got massive problems to contend with here in the future, and we start losing control over some of the major oil fields, and some people are going, oh, it's American oil, blah, blah, blah. But if we lose control over those oil fields, the price of gas here in the Western world will begin to skyrocket out of control. So that's certainly something we do not want, is for the oil to start going to China instead of going to us in Europe at cheaper prices. So with that, I hope that does address that poll fairly well. And we are on to the next one.
All right, and we're moving on to our Super Chat questions once again. That was our last poll for the night. So up first from our Super Chats, we have another Super Chat from Spencer, who puts in a 50. And thank you once again, Spencer. And I think he left for the night already, but if you're watching tomorrow, thank you very much. He says, one more before I go. Good night all, and thank you Enforcers for the great coverage, and take a question from the chat.
And thank you so much for the massive amount of support you've sent in tonight, Spencer. You've been helping this channel out massively, helping to blow away fundraisers. And I've got to thank you so much for everything you've done in helping the Lee Spring Army and us to keep this thing rolling, and also helping those fundraisers out and helping to save Ukrainian lives. It means a lot to us, and I got to thank you so much for the support in helping this channel to keep on running. And so I hope you're watching this tomorrow, and I hope that you did enjoy the little thanks we gave. And thank you so much once again. And with that, we are on to the next one.
Well, real quick, Spencer did ask for a live chat.
Oh, yeah,
so this one is going to Dakota the Bear, who says, is it possible that we'll see Wagner and Russians killing each other in the future when they encounter each other on the battlefield?
Well, hell, we've already seen that, haven't we? I mean, like, we saw the Russian guys and the Wagner guys fighting in the north of Bakhmut that one time over whose position was whose, and they shot at each other. So yeah, we've already seen that, and I would say that will get even worse going on into the future. And so with that, I hope we answered that question fairly well. Thank you once again for sponsoring that, Spencer. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one is a $50 donation from none other than Magic Sky Girl. And thank you very much for that support. She says, it's Friday payday. So happy to hear the voices, lol.
Hey, and I thank you so much for the support, Magic Sky Girl. And I'm glad that you do enjoy the voices. The voices are something that I try and do in moderation, because last time we did them and we started getting a little heavy due to a lot of people wanting them, I went through the comment section the next day and I saw a lot of people who did not like them at all and were very militant about hating on them. And it's kind of a mixed crowd with the Lee Spring Army. Either people love them or they absolutely hate the voices. And of course, if you don't like the voices, I understand, but I don't know why people have to be so rude about it. Like, I'll sit there and do a voice and someone will go, God, you've been such a stupid idiot this whole time. And it's like, dang, dude, it's like, just say you don't like them or something. Or just be like, I'm not really a big fan. Like, I don't know why some people have lost their sensibility and just being polite. That's honestly, beyond being a bot, that's really the only other way to get removed from the live chat, is cussing out viewers or cussing us out. And I just don't know why people do that sometimes about something as simple as the voices. But I'm glad that you do enjoy Magic Sky Girl. And I gotta thank you so much once again for the support and helping this thing to keep on rolling. Because, of course, without your support, it wouldn't be possible. And so thank you so much once again. I hope that addresses that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again for the support.
Yes, indeed. And up next, also Magic Sky Girl said, but we took a poll on this. The voices in your head won.
They did. And then the people who don't like him are just so militant about it. It's really hard to still do them because they just hate him with a passion. And I'm gonna say this, I'm not trying to make them out to sound like they're like bad people or anything like that. It's just that they're just so militant about it. And I understand if they don't like him, because everything isn't for everyone. Everyone's not gonna like the same jokes and all that stuff. But why be so rude about it? Because one thing we make sure to do as a rule on this channel, Matthew and me, is not to be rude to anyone. We don't even cuss at anyone, because it's just incredibly rude.
We don't even cuss.
Yeah, we don't even cuss. Well, we cuss a little on the show, very, very little, but we don't cuss at anyone, even if they're a bot, because it's just is just so rude. And I don't understand how people do not get, and especially with this channel, that you have no right to be in here and say things and like bash us and stuff and act like you can stay, because I'm not the federal government and I'm not bound by the First Amendment to protect your right to bash the channel. It's like showing up to a comedy show. You know, like let's say, I don't know, like Rodney Dangerfield. Let's say you go to Rodney Dangerfield's show and you're a heckler in the crowd. Obviously, they'll deal with the heckler a little bit, just a smidge, but eventually security will come grab you and throw you out. That's kind of how we run this. You know, like you can be civil. You can say whatever you want. You can disagree with us all you want. But one thing I have to say is that if you disagree with us on a fact, like if I say something like the C-RAM can fire 12 miles out, don't just say, oh, you're wrong. You're so wrong. Like, at least tell us how we're wrong. Be like, hey, by the way, man, kind of wrong on that. According to what I've done, you know, I worked on C-RAMs. They can fire like 5.5 miles out. And then I'll be like, oh, thanks for sharing that. We'll correct that. But I just don't know why people don't get that. But still, moving on from that, that's a rabbit hole down a whole other thing. But I thank you so much, Massive Sky Girl, for enjoying the voices. And thank you so much once again for supporting this channel and helping us to keep it running. And also, happy Friday to you, Massive Sky Girl. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $23 donation from Michael from Apple, who says, keep up the good work. You do Drock 23, obviously, for Jordan.
Let's see.
Wait a minute, 23 OBV for Jordan. My bad.
Can you reread that one again? Because the OBV thing threw me off.
He says, keep up the good work. You do Drock 23 OBV for Jordan.
And thank you for the support. I don't know what the part about 2023 OBV means, but I do thank you so much for helping this channel to keep on running. And thank you for enjoying it a whole deal, because we try our best to make sure that the show is great to be on and also fun to talk to the Lee Spring Army. And it looks like we've been doing a fairly good job of that. So thank you so much for supporting us, helping this thing to keep on rolling. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again for the support.
All right. And up next, we have a $20 super chat. Also, Sweaty Chungus, it's good to see you again in the chat. I see you popping up over there.
Sweaty Chungus!
Sweaty Chungus.
He's back!
But no, but no, Magic Scargle, I have not been drinking. Nothing but water. I have a nice bottle of Kirkland Signature purified water with minerals added for taste. It's really good. Y'all try it sometime. It's really good. But anyways, up next, we have a $20 donation from Superbunker 9000, who says, on behalf of those who can't send a super chat, Slava Ukraine and LSA forever.
And thank you so much for the support, Superbunker 9000. Superbunker 9000 is not just a Lee Spring Army soldier, he is also a NAFO member, a dual citizen. And we've grown a fairly special relationship with NAFO over the entire course of the war. And I gotta say, it's great to know that we have NAFO viewers who support this channel here with us tonight. And it's also good to know that there's a lot of Lee Spring Army soldiers that are also members of NAFO. It's really cool. And also, it was super cool to see that y'all got that plaque. And we put that on Twitter. That was so cool to us. We were like, oh my god, we put it on Twitter. So with that, thank you so much once again for the support, Superbunker 9000. Thank you for helping this channel to keep on running, and I hope we addressed that fairly well. And so with that, we are on to the next, but thank you so much once again for the support.
Yes, indeed. And up next, we have a $20 super chat from Martijan DB, who says, what do you think about the goalkeeper CIWS used by the Netherlands Navy?
The CIWS, the goalkeeper, CIWS. Oh.
Is that the sports edition? Athletic.
Dutch. Dude, that thing looks lean.
It does. It looks pretty slim, like maybe a goalkeeper.
Yeah, I mean, it really does. Let's see here. Oh, wait a minute. Comparisons of modern CIWSs. So the goalkeeper is actually heavier by a decent margin compared to the Phalanx, which is the one that we see on Navy ships. By a large amount, actually. It's almost an entire 8,000 pounds heavier. It has a bigger gun as well. It's a 30mm instead of the 20mm that we see on the Phalanx. It has a rate of fire a little bit slower than the Phalanx. It has a effective range much farther than the Phalanx. It has a smaller ammunition storage. The muzzle velocity is almost the same. It's almost identical. The elevation is the same as the Phalanx, and the traverse degrees, of course, is the same. And I am actually pretty blown away that the Netherlands has ships big enough. Like, I'm not bashing the Dutch, all right, because they are a naval-faring country. But I thought nowadays they had a smaller navy, but apparently not. So let me go see what kind of ships they have. I'm actually really interested now. What kind of ships do the Netherlands have? So they have some subs, the Walrus class. Not a bad-looking sub, actually. And I like how people are literally just sailing around their little boats right by the sub. Oh, hello. They're like, oh, hello there. But let's see what they got. So they've actually got 4 frigates. Actually 6 frigates. And these actually look quite nice.
Why is that ship on fire over there, though? Is that an accident?
I guess you could say it wasn't really Hyundai's fortune that day. It was more like Hyundai's misfortune. It's
just a picture of a warship next to a cargo boat on fire. Doesn't look suspicious at all.
Man, the Dutch are going back to the days of piracy. They're stealing the boat. Don't be stealing my boat. But we can see another one here.
The boat.
I love these boats. These are beautiful. And let's see what the other class of ship looks like. The Karl Dorman class. Let's see if we can get a bigger picture. Those look pretty good, too. I like them. Well, the Dutch have got a sweet little... look at these!
Huh, I like.
Dude, the Dutch
Why does it have a
got...
French flag on it, though?
Oh, no, Matthew. That's the Dutch flag. That's the Dutch flag. But, man, I gotta say... The Dutch have an actual navy. I'm actually really impressed by this.
Now you're going to get blamed for that too.
Yeah.
They have an actual navy.
Here's what I'm saying, though. So in my defense, the Netherlands used to be a country with colonies in far-flung reaches of the world, and so they had a sizable navy for that reason. But the Netherlands don't really have any colonies anymore. They don't really have a reason to go beyond their, I guess you could say their coastal waters for that matter. So to see that they have such a large navy like this is actually kind of wild, considering that they, I guess, really don't need one that much anymore. I gotta say, really impressive, though, and they've got some beautiful ships. So to all of our Dutch viewers here tonight, I gotta say, y'all got quite a fine little navy right there, full of beautiful designed ships. I would have to say my favorite, though, is the Holland class. This one just looks clean.
It does look pretty clean. Also, Walter A. Lakota Jr., our in-house bosun. He says, tell the enforcer that the Minen shipyard is in the Netherlands.
The Minen shipyard. Let's pull that up on Google Maps. Now we're going down the rabbit hole. The Minen. Did I spell that right?
Yes.
The Minen shipyard. So let's see here.
Damon, I think.
Damon. Maybe this is it right here. Shipyard's a group. Ship repair.
It's got good reviews.
Yeah, they got some fine reviews. Only 19 of them.
I guess the boats don't sink.
They don't sink pretty good overall. But man, you know, the Netherlands are a really cool country. Their whole entire history revolves around water. Both, even on land, their entire deal has been fighting the sea, and they're winning actually, which is the craziest thing. And I've got to say this. Okay, I'm stuttering over my words right now. We've got to call them out. Call them out.
Call them out.
The Netherlands is a super cool country due to its history. I highly suggest y'all read into it. I think they're like the only people who ate their prime minister.
They did what?
They ate their prime minister.
Well, all right.
Bring in the story of Johan de Witt, a Dutch prime minister that was eaten. He was cannibalized. You see, the Dutch public wasn't really happy with him as prime minister, so they decided to execute him by cannibalism. And you can actually see a little illustration of that right there. And there he is over there. It looks like he's being consumed.
Oh,
I mean, like
these people are short.
the Dutch sat there. I don't really like your leadership. I don't know why I'm doing an Irish accent for the Dutch people, but I don't really like your leadership. I suppose we eat him. It's like, oh, that's a little.
Man, we don't like your leadership, and we'll have a piece of that.
Here, instead of you having a piece of us, we're going to have a piece of you. And then Svetlana said, "Excuse me?" Everyone's like, "Say what?" Yeah, man, don't become a politician in the Netherlands and screw up. They'll just eat you alive. And they're not even, like, It's not even a cultural thing. Like, they look down on cannibalism, but for some reason, if you mess up as a politician, there is a precedent in the Netherlands that you may be eaten. So don't piss them off, because they will eat you. But anyways, beyond that, love the Dutch. Really cool country. And every time a Dutch viewer sends in a super chat or a comment and tells us where y'all are, y'all live in some of the prettiest towns I've ever seen. But with that, we are on to the next one. I hope we addressed all of that fairly well.
Yes, indeed. I hope so. I think we went off on a rabbit hole there, but very interesting info. But anyways, we have a whopping, I said whopping, $200 donation from Arnie YDT, who makes a return. And Arnie, it's good to see you once again. And thank you very much for that massive support. He says, awesome job, both of you. I appreciate all the effort you guys put into the live stream. Keep up the awesome work. And do you have any knowledge on the laser weapons that our country has for air defense, including cost?
Oh my God, we actually covered that last night. Yes, we do. We have a little bit of knowledge from what we went over last night. And also, before we get to covering that part, well, actually, we'll get to covering that part right now. U.S. laser defense system. Sorry if I'm taking a minute because for some reason my throat's really dry, but it's being designed by Lockheed Martin. Here it is right here, and I know some of y'all may have seen this video last night, but considering that Arnie asked about it, he may have not been here last night. Let me show him the video they had for the laser system.
Directed energy. The time for laser weapon systems has come.
To identify the threats, determine whether it's a threat to the aircraft, and then employs the appropriate weapon, in this case, a laser weapon system.
What we're hearing from our customers is
Ground!
that they need a layered, multi-domain defensive approach.
Oh my God! Someone call up the Beehive. There's so many buzzwords here. Jesus, man. Just calm down the buzzwords.
Can be integrated across platforms.
Dude, these guys are trying to get through the freaking resume machine that large corporations use where it searches out the buzzwords in the resume. Like, they're trying to pass that test here with that buzzword level.
Can be integrated across platforms to neutralize these threats across all those domains.
What, is Skunk works like a university now?
He's a fellow.
Imagine an aircraft equipped with a laser system with the capability to be able to neutralize a threat at the speed of a lightning strike, the precision of a surgical scalpel, with the magazine to deal with a swarm, and with the scalable effect to be able to address that threat, providing an effect all the way the one end from simply deterring it for a short period of time, all the way up to completely neutralizing and defeating that threat.
Okay, I gotta be honest with you all.
I'm feeling that guy was really good at math that was just talking just a minute ago.
Yes, I have a feeling he is, but I got to be honest with you, Matthew. Usually, I've got to be honest with you, I'm not really a big fan of how much money we consistently spend on the military compared to everything else. But I would actually divert funding, just, let's say hypothetically, to this project alone, because just imagine the implications of having this kind of technology for the ground forces, the Navy, and the Air Force. They're practically invincible at that point. At least the military is. I mean, this stuff's amazing. But anyways, let me let the video keep running because this stuff's incredible.
Proven system architect.
We were able to integrate our laser weapon system, Athena, into the classified C2 network and receive cues.
Wait, was that a video of it actually working?
We were able to integrate our laser weapon system, Athena, into the classified C2 network.
No! It actually works!
I guess it works.
We never saw this last night.
Network and receive cues from the radar on the range in order to execute the full kill chain.
The full kill chain, gotta have that.
Yeah,
Helios
the
laser weapon
buzzword.
system builds on 40 years of combat system engineering and radar excellence. That is a fundamental change for laser weapon systems, which here to date have been prototypes added to a ship. Helios will be integrated into the ship.
So what's exciting about this technology is that it's scalable. It's lived in the laboratory for many years, but has finally reached the power levels and the effectiveness to allow it to be used on the battlefield. As an example, today's laser weapon systems can be used to defeat rockets, artillery, mortars, and even small UAVs. And as that technology and capability scales, the effectiveness scales with it. We'll be to the point here shortly where we'll be able to defend aircraft against incoming missiles and even reach out over long distances and destroy ballistic missile threats.
I gotta say, I'm blown away. I'm speechless. This is incredible.
Laser weapon systems are earning their way
Discriminating.
on the battlefield. Lockheed Martin advancements in the fundamental subsystems, be it beam control, high energy laser, beam direction, power and thermal, is bringing a system-of-system approach to our customers' most challenging problem. Lockheed Martin can bring that end-to-end capability into the theater for the life of our platforms and help defend the brave women and men who boldly go in harm's way to defend our freedoms.
So there's the answer.
All right, I'll take 2.
We'll take 1,000,000 of these. We'll put them on everything. Hell, we'll give them to the average infantryman. Just add it like an underslung grenade launcher on a rifle, where it's like, uh-oh, here comes a mortar round, and it just shoots it out the sky with a laser. But I hope that answers that question, Arnie, because we do have some knowledge on those laser systems, and I've got to say, that is as revolutionary as drone warfare is, because imagine being able to shoot down any given projectile anywhere at just about any range, as long as it has a physical line that you can draw from the firing system to that object and being able to shoot it down. Absolutely incredible. And I would have to say that we don't know the cost yet. I'll say that. We don't know the cost. But I'm sure that once they start mass production, the cost, and also over time, once the technology gets more and more ironed out, the cost will decrease to where it's incredibly affordable. And we'll probably see, considering the burgeoning military budget of the U.S., a lot of U.S. forces, mostly the aircraft and the Air Force, will most likely be equipped with these first, along with the Navy, and the Army will most likely be the last one to get those systems, along with the Marines. But then again, I'm just taking a guess there. I don't really know how they'll distribute them. But still, I hope that answers that part of the Super Chat. And thank you once again for the support. And I'm going to thank you so much for appreciating the awesome job, awesome in all caps, that we do. Of course, we take compliments somewhat. We, of course, take them incredibly well in stride, but we always don't want to get a big head. But I do thank you so much for enjoying the stream and finding it to be incredible, because we put in a massive amount of effort into making this thing happen. We put in hours, countless hours. I believe Matthew and me combined put in, at this point, about 100 hours a week together in making this thing run. Maybe. I think it's more like 80 or 90 or something like that. But combined,
it's a lot of time.
Yeah,
especially adding the Twitter to it. That added a lot of work.
Yeah, it's a lot of time and effort that's put into running this channel. And I've got to thank you so much for enjoying everything we do, because we do it so that way all of y'all can get the news of what's going on around the world, and so that way we can keep the attention on Ukraine, what's going on over there, and making sure the support keeps on going for Ukraine. And so thank you so much once again for the mass amount of support. I hope we answered that question about the laser tech fairly well with that video. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for the mass amount of support and helping this channel to keep on running.
Yes, indeed. And up next, we have a $25 super chat from Avari Mandubratis, who says, I like the voices, and why not try Orange Man washing up on Gilligan's Island? Can you do any of the character voices? If not, pick other characters to show up. Also, the Infographics channel has an interesting post-war scenario vid you ought to check out.
And thank you so much for the support of Ray. I will try and check out that video, most likely after the stream, because, you know, we're always scared about the copyrights and stuff. We can watch Lockheed videos and stuff like that, because they're usually never copyrighted, but things that kind of just exist on YouTube, those can be copyrighted, and a lot of channels are very territorial about their stuff being shown. Funnily enough, we could also be territorial about our stuff being shown on other channels, sometimes for good and sometimes for straight up not good at all. I don't know why I had to say it that way, but you know, we like to be sensible. We like to be sensible. Not calling anyone out or anything, but you know. Anyways, I will see about doing that. And I've got to be honest with y'all, my orange band is getting a little worse. My mom, who's usually the judge of my voice, has said that it's not that as good as it used to be. And I'm sorry about that, everyone. It's just because, not to make any excuses or anything, but I don't do the voices as much now as I used to, so it's really hard to keep them in practice. But I will see about doing that. So,
what the hell is going on here? I'm on a beach. This is definitely not Long Beach. Great place, by the way. Wonderful investments. But this is not Long Beach. Where the hell am I? What?
Keep going.
All right. I gotta say, it's not a great place. I don't see a McDonald's. Don't see a McDonald's around here. Rosie O'Donnell. What was that? Beg your pardon?
Keep going.
I don't know. Well, it looks like I'm on some kind of island. Oh, wait a minute, hang on. A lifesaver just floated up. Gilligan's Island. And I've got to ask, why the hell is there a life vest with Gilligan's Island on it, considering it's an island? It's not like it's sinking or anything, but why? That doesn't make any sense. I'm throwing that back into the sea. And I got to say, the water, it looks beautiful. It looks like it's covered in oil. Must be Norfolk Southern. Wait a minute. Wonderful aqua. Beautiful aqua. No aqua like this before. I gotta say, Norfolk Southern really knows how to make the water look good. It looks great. It's covered in this beautiful discoloration. Absolutely incredible.
What are you doing on my island?
Bernie, what the hell are you doing here?
I've got to tell you, the top 1% of this country owns half of this country's wealth. And me owning about 6 summer mansions, I gotta say that this one's one of my favorite.
What the hell are you telling me that this is your island?
Yeah, it's part of my island.
What the hell? I can't even afford to fly my jet. Well, how the hell are you affording another house on an island? That doesn't make any sense.
Well, I gotta tell you, it's
What the hell are you doing here? This doesn't make any sense. This is Gilligan's Island, and some of the biggest freaks are on this island, including myself. I don't understand what's going on here.
Well, I gotta tell you, I don't understand either. But one thing I gotta say is that we need to distribute the islands to the rest of the country. We need an equitable island distribution program. I've got to tell you, as President of the United...
What the hell is Nixon doing here? I thought he was dead.
I'm not dead, and I'm not a crook.
Anyways, thank you so much for the support, Avari. Sadly, I don't know of Gilligan's Island. I know what you're talking about. I have heard of Gilligan's Island, but I've never actually seen the actual movie. And I thank you so much for the support, and I hope you enjoyed the voices fairly well. I would keep them going on for a while, but it's hard to do them, especially
Donald, the Orange Man. Sorry, it's kind of tough to do them because you've got to sit there and you got to get that raspiness. You got to get the raspiness. Some say I do the raspiness better than others. And you got to have Matthew laughing in the background. That's really tough.
Magic Sky Girl said, I cannot breathe or see right now. I hope you're laughing and not having a medical problem.
She has a peanut allergy and there's a peanut dust in the air. She's like, I think I'm laughing, but I think I need to see the hospital. But anyways.
I can't see.
Oh, man. But anyways. Thank you all so much once again for enjoying the voices. Literally, a lot of y'all got a laugh out of this. And, well, you know, I was thinking, Matthew, sometimes those go on with such a length and they have so much of a story that we're making for them, they could pretty much be made into little animated cartoons. But, you know.
Probably so, but it already exists. It's real life.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Real life is funny enough as it is. We don't need cartoons. But still, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that addresses that fairly well, Avari, and thank you so much for helping this channel to keep on running and also loving the voices, because
I try my best. I really do. But sometimes people out there, they just rig the voices. They rig them up. The system is rigged, and I just can't do them. Nobody likes them. Well, actually, a lot of people like them, but not enough, because it has to be unanimous. It has to be a landslide. Nobody says I can do a landslide like me. So with that,
we're going to be on to the next one, but thank you so much once again.
Oh, man, I get no respect around here. I see people already saying I don't like the voices. And I gotta tell you, I don't like to look at me in the mirror, but you don't see me complaining about it much. Oh man.
But anyways, so we're on to the next one. There was a bonus one thrown in, but thank you once again for the support.
And he ran the whole gamut of voices. So, Avari, I hope you're happy. But up next, we have a $20 super chat from Hal Rose. He says, Enforcer, the evacuation was called for the citizens, not the military. The Azov has come to the town. They did not come to retreat.
And thank you for the support. And I thank you for addressing that fairly well. But I know what that's addressing. It's addressing the thumbnail. Some thumbnails of some people out there that we've mentioned before. But just to pull a page out of the book, because a book's been written out there about the rules as to what's clickbait and not, according to some people out there. And what he did was clickbait, because when I looked at that title, I understood it to mean that the Ukrainian army was leaving. And I think that's how a lot of people understood it. So, going off of the rule book that some people, not me, I'm just going off the rules that other people have laid out. Going off of that rule book, that would be clickbait. But I do understand what you're saying, and I thank you for the support and clarifying that. Civilians were, as far as I understand, civilians haven't actually been evacuated out of Bakhmut. They're just not allowed to return. But I may be misunderstanding.
I think they have been evacuating civilians out of Bakhmut, and there's 4,000 left.
I think this time they're like, they're waiters. They're the worst. We gotta get them out of there. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And thank you so much once again for the support and clarifying that. And the Azov hopefully will hold the line along with the 93rd, because the 93rd is doing a great job. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again for support and clarifying that for us real quick.
Yes, indeed. And up next, we have a $20 super chat from Marion Deemer, who says, Matthew, I hope you and your brother know what a great group of LSA you have gathered here on this site, and hugs to all. And I agree with you 100%, Marion. Very good group here at LSA. Very generous group. Over 850,000 raised for Ukraine. So that says volumes about the character of the LSA as a whole. And also, thank you very much for that support.
It really does. And it says a lot about how civil the live chat is, because, of course, this is one thing I've got to say. The internet is full of all kinds of people. You can find anyone on the internet. Literally anyone, from the most weird people to the most weird people on the other side. You can find them all. And you can see that our live chat is incredibly tame. And I've got to say, y'all are the best live chat I've ever seen, because Matthew and me have roamed the internet. We were born in the internet age, so I've been around on the internet for a long part of my life, and you don't see a lot of tame live chats, or tame communities for that matter. A lot of them just devolve into I don't want to say it like this, but degeneracy in a way, where it's like people are just trying to outdo themselves on like the shock factor that they can get out of a statement. And you don't see that here, largely because those people who like get a rise out of like shock value, they're not here anymore. And also, y'all don't get into that. And I think that's absolutely incredible. And it just shows how great of a community and how well intentioned it is that we're all not really here for the shock factor of anything. We're really just here for to keep spirits up and also to help support Ukraine. And I think that's incredible, and also very special to the Lee Spring Army as well. And not only that, the fundraisers have gone so far too. $860,000 as of the last count. And that is truly wild when you think about it. $860,000 from a channel with only 114,000 subscribers. That means in terms of fundraising, every single viewer on this channel has donated about $8 a pop over the course of a year and a month. It's absolutely crazy. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, Marion. Thank you so much once again for support. And I've got to give a huge round of applause to everyone in the Lee Spring Army, because y'all are incredible and very special. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again for the support.
And also, I saw some folks saying the live chat's clear because Matt executes the bots so quick. And it's true. I've never seen any other channel so militant about bots as this one. I'm not trying to brag or anything, but we do eliminate those bots pretty fast. Like, they don't really stand a chance here. They get smitten or smited or whatever. But
and that's something.
Anyways,
that's something that has been. Well, that's something that's very controversial to the people who do get banned. I think because they're used to just being able to do or say whatever they want, that they think they can come to any live chat on the internet and pollute it with either propaganda or shock factor or just trying to stir up trouble. And Matthew gets them on the spot. I remember way back in the day, Matthew's really gone through a transition over the course of the stream. I remember way back in the day, he was actually asking me, because I used to be the only one that did that before Matthew joined on. Matthew used to ask me back in the day, why do you do that? And I said, no, don't worry. If you stay around long enough, you'll understand. And now he does it quicker than I would have ever done it in some instances. I'm like, dang, look at him. Little Darth Vader down there. But anyways, with that.
That's just because I've gotten better identifying the bots. I still give people many chances if I can tell you're like a real human. I don't like banning people. Seriously, I never have. But now I know exactly what to look for to find a bot. The name gives it away, what they're saying. They always go along the same track. But no, I don't like banning people, truthfully. But you got to do it sometimes, or otherwise the chat will be out of control.
Yeah, you got to. You got to. And so with that, we are on to the next one. But thank you so much once again for the support, Marion, and I hope we addressed that fairly well.
Yes, indeed. And up next, we have a $17 donation from Cindy Mitchell, who says, sorry for last night's typo with a big O. Smokey said, send it to the chat, Sir Matt. And of course we will. And Enforcer, what say you?
And thank you so much for support. Perfectly fine about the typo. No big deal. Typos. One thing you gotta understand is that we just take we make little jokes about anything. It's never meant personally. We never mean to, like, you know, when there's a typo, to make fun of the typo and try and make someone feel goofy for it. Because if y'all watch, you watch the stream a lot, Cindy, you know I butcher a lot of my words. And one thing we don't do on stream that we do off stream, I said do. One thing that we do have off stream is that in our family, whenever anyone misspeaks a word or says it wrong, everyone just kind of laughs, including the person that did it, because usually it's a hilarious misspeaking. But it's totally fine. Don't worry. That's just kind of a thing that our family does. It's never meant personally. It's just meant as like, it's like, look, that's a funny typo. Isn't that crazy? It sounds like that, but it means this. But still, thank you so much once again for support. And we will send it to the live chat. And so with that, what do we got, Matthew?
And this question goes to Doug Halstead, who says, could or should Ukraine put the Wagner convicts back into prison?
Yeah, I would say yeah. The Russian government should. The Wagner shouldn't. Because if it's in the Wagner's realm, they would want them back out on the streets. Because that gives them a little bit of extra leverage and maybe even social power. But if it's for the Russians' benefit, the Russian government's benefit, they'll want to put them back in prison. So with that, I hope that says that. I hope that addresses that fairly well. And I thank you so much once again for the support in helping us to address a live chat, Cindy. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again.
All right, and the next one goes to Chip Kerwan, who puts in a 20 and says, global warming creating huge wealth for Russia. Arctic route China to Rotterdam is 29 days faster than Suez. For the video, search Arctic Megaport.
And it is interesting, due to the melting in the ice caps up in the North Pole, the Northwest Passage, look at that, I just misspoke right when I was telling Cindy, I misspeak a lot, I said Passage, but the Northwest Passage actually is opened as a trading route that ships can pass through, which is wild. It's like absolutely insane, you know, because Lewis and Clark went searching for this thing, and it didn't exist. Now it does through the north of Canada, kind of through the north, like it's literally right there, the Northwestern Passages. They're up here. And it's just wild to think that that's a thing now. It's also a thing around Russia as well. So I thank you for the support, Chip. And let's see, for search Arctic Megaport. Let me pull that up. Arctic Megaport. It's a megaport on the Tamir coastline. It says from the B1M. This was in 2022 on January 19th. Disagree. No, thank you. Let's see here. No. So let's see here. The Tamir.
Is that a megapint?
Megapint. She shit on the bed. Well, let's see.
Man, I took some abuse for a very long time.
I got knocked around a little bit. Megapint. But
he did get the last word, though.
He did get the last word. I'll say that for sure. That whole trial was like almost a comedy routine. I don't even know what it was.
It was like the airing out of stuff that should have remained private to the entire world.
She defecated on the bed. it's like
oh great.
Me, what?
And my dog stepped on a bee.
And I was their butler, and they came home one day, and she cut him. With what? A butcher knife? No, with a shard from a chandelier. How the hell did she get that? Like, it's like, what? Anyways, let's see here. Can't really seem to find where it is. But it looks like, at least according to B1M, they were planning on building a superport up here in, like, Siberia somewhere. I would doubt it, because this area is inhospitable to most people. It'd be very expensive to even upkeep it, much less build it. But it looks like they have plans for it. I'm sure those plans aren't happening now due to the bankruptcy they're going to be facing from this war. But with that, thank you so much once again for the support, Chip, and letting us know about that, because that is really interesting, to say the least. And so with that, we're on to the next one, and thank you once again for the support.
All right, and up next, we have a $20 super chat from Trister1. And thank you very much, Trister, for that support. And he says, Amerifati Squadron Drone Fund.
And thank you so much for the support, Trister, to the Amerifati drone squad. And we will be getting a drone to him eventually. We're still trying to find a way, but we will get them a drone. And if push comes to shove, we will just get them the drone ourselves. But with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that fairly well. And thank you for helping this channel to keep on running, Trister, because you've been around for a while and helping to support this channel a decent deal. And thank you so much once again. And with that, we are on to the next one.
Also, just typing down a merch idea real quick while I have it in my head, because I do forget about them sometimes. Amerifati, and also I have another one. I'll keep that one secret, though. If anybody else has any merch ideas, let me know, because it's coming back around time to launch another merch run. And I'm working on a couple ideas, because I usually create several different drafts before we decide on the final one. And we usually try to see which one works the best, because sometimes ideas that sound good on paper don't actually look good in execution. But y'all let us know. We take suggestions. And up next, we have a $12 super chat from Margaret Hemsley, who says, for the Spoil Yourself Fund, and question from the live chat, please.
And thank you so much for the support to the Spoil Yourself Fund, Colleen. I, of course, thank you greatly. And we rarely ever actually spoil ourselves, but we will see about trying, so thank you so much for the support for that. And also, we will make sure to throw that thing to the live chat. So, Matthew, you better be careful with that thing.
Oh?
To the live chat.
I'm
chat,
responding to a live chat, by the way. Also, Fusha Cohn's got me messed up now. He's Amerifati. So, but anyways, Amerifati, I'm going to check that out in the Discord here in just a second, because I'm getting really anxious to see it. And I will get back with you very shortly. But we're going to grab that live chat question, and it goes to, let's see here. It goes to Canty Luden. He says, why do the Russian air bases look like a backwoods runway that you'd see on Duck Dynasty?
Well, I got to tell you something. That's cause it is backwoods runway. They don't have nothing better in Russia, I tell you that. Leroy Merlin. What the hell is this? Wow, power tool blade. Wow, lumber blade. Wow, that's actually not that bad lumber, though. I mean, like, that's actually, like, kind of solid. I mean, like, you'd find lumber like that, well, worse than that in Lowe's. I'll give them that. But is that all they have in the store is hardware? And is this their version of a Lowe's?
Yeah, I was about to say, it looks like it's a Lowe's.
Dude, they do not have the colors down, though. This is like the insane asylum colors, like the green stripe on the wall with the white paint. Like, that's an insane asylum.
Leroy Merlin.
Leroy Merlin! And what the hell is this? The Emoji Club? What the hell? What the hell?
Oh, wow. Actually looks decent.
Dude, this is cringe, though. The Emoji Club.
I mean, I can overlook the name for the food, I have to admit. But the food doesn't look bad at all.
How much does this cost, though? The name's stupid, I'll say that. It doesn't even have any reviews. No reviews whatsoever.
Now, that is sketchy.
That's very sketch. And then they have Prem Ring. And let's see, they just have an SU-27 just lying around. What the hell is Russia? Like,
oh, it's go-karting. That's pretty cool.
Vladivostok Air. I would not fly on that plane. That does not look like it's FAA approved. But, yikes. Let's see here. Little F1 blade. It's tiny. That's F1
cool.
blade.
They have a Tesla, too, somehow.
They have a Lamborghini blade. Dude, I feel like this is like the rich people's club in, like, this area of the country. It's literally an SU-27. The tires have rotted, though. But it is an SU-27. What the hell is this place? Like, I don't know. Drift Academia.
Drift School? Is that Drift School?
It's literally Drift School. Wait a minute, what's this clip? A normal day in Montgomery, Alabama. What the hell? We're not seeing anything. And then we got guys who won.
Now listen here. I've been following drifting for quite some time, and those are some pretty jank-looking drifting cars, if I do say so myself. They look like they came straight out the junkyard.
Did someone even file for insurance on this one? I mean, like, this one literally was just taken out of the... It's got tape on the hood. Okay, these are just garbage. I mean, like...
Insurance? Bliat, what is that?
Insurance, bliat. Is that what you say to someone when you say, trust me, bro, is that insurance? Is that assurance or something? But what the hell? Dude, this place is just... What the hell is this thing? There's this giant tiger statue in the middle of this intersection. What the hell is Russia?
I don't know if that's worth the whole Google pin for that.
A MiG-23. There's a MiG-23 right here. I don't even know what the hell Russia even is. Like, it's confusing as hell. Cafe mush. Yes, I would like some mush with my coffee, please. Hold the mush. Let's see. Oh... Okay, this is only gotten the facade with the emoji club of being a nice place. That's what it really looks like out there. And they got vending machines in the open air. Like, not even under an awning or anything. They're just gonna let the electrical circuits get fried whenever a rainstorm comes
that's not
through.
even a vending machine. That's literally just a refrigerator.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Yeah, I was looking at that wrong. But... Damn, man, this place is rough. What's over here? Anyways, we're going down a big rabbit hole. How many super chats do we have left?
We have 20.
20. We have 20?
20.
20. You're saying 20 like
Yes.
20? Okay, I was just making sure because for some reason your microphone makes it sound like twitty. And I'm like, twit? Are you calling me a twit? I'm like, what? But anyways...
I'm not calling you a twit, but you can peep the Twitter.
Oh man, I get no respect around here. I said, hey, you're calling me names? And then they tried to tell me to watch his Twitter. Oh man, I get no respect around here. Oh man.
But anyways, I hope that addresses that fairly well. I thank you so much once again for the support. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $10 super chat once more from Trister1, who says, for the drone fund and live chat question.
And thank you for the support, Trista, and helping this channel to keep on running. And we will make sure to get a live chat question as well. And so with that, what do we got?
All right, and this live chat question sponsored by Trister1 goes to DL Hemingway, who says, do you think that Colombia encouraged these guys to fight for Ukraine to get combat veterans?
Maybe. What is he trying to say, that Colombia encouraged Ukraine to get the combat veterans, or they encouraged their combat veterans to go over there?
No, he's saying, are they trying to get the Colombian guys over there to fight in the Ukraine war so that way they become combat veterans so they can fight better for Colombia when they come back home?
I don't think so, because a lot of the Colombian military gets action every day. It's not like a war or anything, but they are fighting the cartel, which, if you look at what's going on in Mexico, it kind of is like a war when you fight a cartel. So I would say they probably already have combat experience, and that's why they're probably there, in my opinion, of course. But we don't really know their exact backstory. But with that, thank you once again for the support. I hope that does answer the question. Well, actually, I hope that does address that live chat fairly well. And thank you once again, Trister, for sponsoring that live chat. And with that, we are on to the next one.
Yeah, Fets80 says, is it time for Blitzspeak? No, not yet.
Not yet, not yet.
Anyways, interesting term for that, by the way. I don't know if the enforcers are going to adopt that or not. But
But anyways, we're on to the next one.
Up next, we have a $10 super chat from CK Bold, who says, for the Can Spam Fund.
And thank you so much for the support to the Can Spam Fund. I would hate to know that you buy spam at the store and it's just out there on the shelf, like without a can or anything. That would just be gross. So thank you for the Can Spam Fund. We will make sure to get it in a can, like civilized people. And so with that, thank you once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Anita, who puts in a $10 donation, And Anita says, Enforcer, did you know that the last recipient of an American Civil War pension didn't pass away until 2020?
Yes, I did. I did know that. And it's really a funny story. We won't go into it now due to time constraints, but I did know that. And it's a really cool fact and a really cool story. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again for helping this channel to keep on running.
All right. Excuse me.
Bless you.
Up next, we have a $10 super chat from E3 ECO, who says, for the Bobcat Skidster Fund.
And thank you for the support. For some reason, the way Matthew said that, I thought there was more to it. But thank you for the support, helping this channel keep on running. And also, thank you for putting something towards the Bobcat Skid Steer Fund. We'll be making sure to skid that steer around that Bobcat. You know what I mean? And so with that, thank you once again. I hope I addressed that fairly well. And we're on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Walter A. Lakota Jr., who puts in a $10 donation. He says, Aloha, the Enforcer Matt and LSA from OG LSN Bosun back home and found some patches that both of you will really like. Something to decorate your room with, and take one from the chat.
And I forgot to say Bosun, Matthew, when you said that. I was like, damn it.
I was waiting for it.
Dang it, I forgot about it. But thank you so much for the support, Walter, our OG LSM Bosun. And if you send those patches to us, we'll be more than happy to take a look at them and decorate the room with them. We will eventually be doing a podcast again. It's probably coming up a lot sooner than many of y'all think. It may. I'm not giving y'all any guarantees, though. But it may be within this next week. We may be running one. I don't know exactly when, but we will probably be running one because we're getting a lot of free time. It's spring break. So with that, I thank you for the support. I hope that does address that fairly well. And thank you for being the OG LSM Bosun, Walter Lakota. You've been around forever, and we will make sure to grab one from the live chat.
And the one sponsored by Walter A. Lakota Jr. goes to, let's see here, Jaunty, who says, with Putin becoming more and more desperate to win this war, do you believe he'll start playing dirty? For example, using chemical weapons, international nerve agent attacks, or something similar?
I don't think he will, because nuclear, biological, or chemical attacks will draw the United States into the war. That's our red line, and I don't think he wants to attempt that, because if he gets desperate and does something like that, he's made the situation even worse than it was before. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. Thank you so much once again for the support. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again.
And up next, we have a $10 super chat from Mr. Jack B11, who says, I think I kind of stumped Matt with the homeschooled comment, lols. And yes, you did. You definitely stumped me with that one. I don't know if the enforcer saw it, but it was definitely interesting. I don't know what made you think of that, but I had some questions about you, to say the least. But thank you very much for the support.
And I thank you so much for the support. Homeschool much?
Well, here's what he said. I'll tell you.
Okay.
Mr. Jack said, I was homeschooled, and I really like being homeschooled, and I also had a crush on the teacher.
Uh-oh.
Yes.
Sweet home Alabama. Oh no. Oh no. That's not a good one. That's rough. That's rough. Oh man, that's yikes.
So I said, hold up. Wait a minute.
Hold up. But still, thank you for the support. And also, yeah, that one got me too. I just heard that and I said, hold up. I was like, wait a minute. Put that thing in reverse real quick. What was that? But still, thank you for the support. Thank you for a pretty good joke right there. But Matthew, that guy's going to stick with us for a while, sitting there going, I'm going to test their comedy. I'm going to test if they have a sense of humor. And then just says, homeschool much for the next 2 hours.
Yes.
Oh man,
that guy was testing us. He was a good testing person.
He was a good tester.
He lasted a long time.
We have a good sense of humor. The one thing he learned is that we have a refined sense of humor that doesn't consist of the same joke with no punchline for 2 straight hours. 2 straight hours. We actually allowed that guy to be in here for 2 whole hours. And you know, once we banned him, I'm sure he sat there and went, oh, I found it out. And he acted like we had us have. They have no sense of humor. It's like, we have a sense of humor, but there's got to be a punchline somewhere. So that we are on to the next one. And thank you once again for the support. And I hope we addressed that fairly well.
All right. And also, Uncle Grandpa said the Enforcer boys were molded in public schools. And yes, we were. Can you tell by our math skills at all? But
we were.
Anyways,
we were molded. Man, I got to tell you, some of the teachers we had in school, I don't know how we made it. Like some of the teachers we had in school had some like serious problems, like just from a human perspective, like should not be around kids. Some of them should not. Some of them really shouldn't have been around kids because you heard me you heard what they did with the kids, and you're like, oh goodness, they're out there trying to multiply. But anyways, that's putting it lightly. And then other ones had like fantasies of grandeur, and then they ended up being that woman from Matilda, if you know who I'm talking about, Matthew. I don't know if you know exactly what I'm saying, but ended up being Matilda in our senior year of school, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I think I do.
Yeah, the one who had everything figured out.
Oh yeah,
Yeah. And then for some reason they were still teaching in public school, and it's like, but I thought you had everything figured out. Why are you here? Considering how lowly you make this sound, and you've been here for 15 years, why haven't you moved on? Not that there's anything wrong with being a teacher at a public school, but at the same time, you're going to sit there and trash talk it every day to your students and then make it sound like you have a plan to do things greater than that. It's like, why are you still here? Shouldn't you have moved on 15 years ago? Anyways, we're on to the next one, though, and thank you for the support.
Oh my goodness, there's so many stories to tell. Like we went to school with there were some, I'm not gonna like make it sound too bad. There were obviously good people in it, a decent number of good people, but there was also a really, really bad element.
But you know what's
pretty
sad?
decently large bad element in our schools too. We went to school with people that have become basically killers ever since. One kid I know tried to kill somebody, and that's not the worst that's happened.
But you know what's sad, Matthew, is that there were a few good teachers that stuck around. Very small amount of them. I would say maybe 2 of them, 3 of them maybe. And all the ones that were exceptional would get the hell out of there almost as soon as they got in there because they realized what it was and what they were dealing with. And so they would move all the way to states like Tennessee to get out of that school system. And it's like, dang, It's like we're just being stuck here with like, some of the worst. I'm not dogging on all of them because if any of our teachers for some reason are watching, some of them were great. But some of them were okay. And then some of them were just downright terrible. And so with that, X-Men said enforcer triggered him. Yeah, kind of. I mean, like, hell, man.
This is a sensitive topic here.
Public school is an experience that I will never go through again. And I'm not saying that I'll put my kids through homeschool because, or private school, because private school and homeschooling doesn't prepare you for dealing with real people. But man, sometimes real people can be something. I mean, especially where we went, it was something, really. But anyways, with that, we're on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a $10 super chat from Sick Lid, who says, I agree with Enforcer Matt. It seems to be irresponsible to reinforce Bakhmut. And Sick Lid, I have to say that I'm not going to bash Ukraine for making the decision because they are fighting for their land and they have their own personal reasons for holding out in Bakhmut. And also, it is symbolic to Ukraine, and I have to give leeway for that. It seems like the reason to use it as a meat grinder might be a little bit on shaky ground. They probably should have retreated by now, but they are holding, and it looks like, even though they've taken heavy losses, the battle might turn in their direction if Wagner starts giving out like it looks like they're doing. So it might end up paying off, but it is definitely risky in my opinion.
I would. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, no,
You're
you
good.
go ahead. I'm good. Oh, okay.
I was actually about to wrap it up.
But I thank you for the support, Cichlid, as well. And I would actually have to say, I didn't, Matthew and me were both on the same page until recently, that it wasn't really a good idea for them to try and hold Bakhmut. But now considering how the prevailing winds have shifted in their favor, it may have actually paid off for them if what we're seeing now continues on even more in the next coming days and the weeks. So we may actually see that they turn the entire situation around in Bakhmut, and holding on to the city was actually a blessing in disguise. So with that, I hope that addresses that fairly well. Thank you so much once again for the support, though, Cichlid. And I would say, based off what we saw a few days ago, it didn't seem like a smart call to hold the city, but seeing what we're seeing today, it seems like it may have actually been a good idea. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again for helping this channel to keep on running. Also, Matthew, Joey Tell just said I was expelled from school. Remember that one kid, Matthew, when we were at school that, slapped one of the teachers and then went running out into, like, the cornfield behind the school? Oh, man.
Yeah.
Oh, dang. I think we could say this joke, man. There was nobody knows who the hell this would be, but I guess you could say he was living like Larry.
Oh my
Oh
god.
my god. I can't believe that actually happened. It happened in the middle of us being there. It was a big deal. Like, cops were like doing manhunts outside of the school, and almost all of us were clueless. We were like, what happened? What's going on? And then they're like, so-and-so slapped a teacher, and he ran out the back door of the school into the fields, and he's missing now. He's disappeared. I think they found.
I had some really horrible kid in this one math class I had. He picked up one of the desk and like chunked it at the teacher, like the whole desk. Like this dude was huge too. Like he was like 300 pounds. Like this dude could pick anything up. He picked up this like 50, 60 pound desk and chunked it at him.
Wait a minute, he talks like this, didn't he?
Yes, that was the kid. That was the kid.
Wait a minute, when did he do that?
He did it right in the middle of math class, like fourth period.
God, I can't believe that, man. I remember. Oh, it was rough. Anyways,
oh man, it was tough. Oh,
that's why I didn't learn math. I was too busy looking at that large kid throwing a desk at the teacher, thinking, "Man, I'm going to have to get up and stop this."
Matthew,
like this guy's about to kill the teacher.
Matthew's not even lying. In high school, I was around 6'2", and I weighed about 220 pounds. So a fairly big person, you know, like in every respect, tall, you know, heavy, all that. So this kid that Matthew's talking about, he just ran up to me one day. He said, "Hey," and I turned around, and he literally just picked me up like a sack of flour. Like it was like I was actually after that I was like I got to keep a distance from this guy. And also on top of that, he had some very weird tendencies. You know, like on the level of like a welcome to Neverland. And so it's like you got to avoid him at all costs because if anything happened, it was going to happen, and there was really nothing you could do. So. You know,
yeah, and the weird part, he didn't seem like he was sort of strange. He didn't seem like really like a bad person, but he was kind of like a little bit deranged at the same time. It's hard to describe.
I don't really know what it was. It was a rough experience at school. I'm just glad I'm out. So with that, we're on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $10 super chat from Juice2288, who says, if they let incompetent Wagner group take Bakhmut, it is a big victory for the cowardly Russians.
It's not really that big of a victory. They've had much bigger victories before than this. It's just that the Russians have tried to hype it up now, you know, because it's the only thing they can try and take. But it's not really that big of a victory. They might hype it up, but that doesn't make it any bigger of a victory. So with that, I thank you once again for the support. I hope that does address the question fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one. And Trister said it was something. No, it was not. I can guarantee you that.
No, it definitely wasn't that.
I mean, of course, we don't want to get into too many stories about him or anything, but the stories that people heard about this kid, you know, it's...
I don't think it'll make a difference because, well, I won't say that. That's a little too morbid, but I don't think it'll make a difference telling the story at this point.
Well, anyways, this kid, you could call him, let's see, what's the gnome, Matthew, the company that says, spend less time getting there, more time being there. What's the company?
Travelocity?
Yeah, I called this kid Travelocity because he was going from house to house with multiple different folks. So, you know, he was... He had a little questionable. So he's kind of like Travelocity. He was spending less time getting there and a lot more time being there. But with that, we're on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a $10 super chat from Jay Byrne, who does not leave a comment. But Jay Byrne, you've been around for a very long time. We appreciate the support very much. And up next, we have a $10 super chat from Craig Platel, who says CRAM can be used for point defense of infrastructure. A round only costs $30 a piece. Damn. It uses only a few hundred rounds at most per engagement. Therefore, it costs less than $30,000 per engagement.
And I thank you for the support and sharing that with us. Because it's an interesting system. Maybe we'll see it in Ukraine one day, but I'm thinking it'll be pretty hard to see it over there. But still, thank you for the support. I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the National Magic. Skygo said for me to say that in the Samuel voice. I won't do that right now because I feel like I've spoiled y'all tonight with voices, but I will probably recount some school stories in the Sam Elliott voice sometime in the future. And with that, we are on to the next one.
Trister once said, sociopath?
Maybe.
No, I might be able to agree with that diagnosis. That sounds closer to the truth. But anyways, up next, we have a $7 super chat from Ben, who says, while I love the idea of purchasing a drone for a Ukrainian unit, I think there could be a better way to spend the money because the average drone only survives a handful of missions. Go LSA and Zach.
And thank you for the support. We still got to get them a drone, though, because they want one. And we're not going to turn them down for that. I'm not going to be like, hey, man, like, I know y'all want that drone badly, and that's what y'all been asking for, but instead we're going to give you some bandages. I'm not going to do that to it because they're going to be like, what the hell, man? Like, we need a drone. But still, I do understand what you're saying, but I think it will probably survive over there. Maybe. It's got the blessing of the Lee Spring Army on it. How in the world could it fail? So with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a $5 super chat from Ari Mensala, who says, 3 Bobcats, a 3. Happy birthday, Matthew, from Finnish Jager. And keep up the good work, LSA.
Well, he said
and
a town, didn't
thank
he?
you, thank you.
He said a town, didn't he? How do you spell it?
No, he said it from a Finnish Jager.
Jaeger?
Jaeger.
Oh, God. The Jaeger. I was like, what town is that? That's no town. That's a Jaeger. But...
Well, thank you very much for saying happy birthday. I have to be probably 6,000 years old by now with all these birthdays I've been having. But yes, we did have 3 Bobcats tonight, and that's a cause for celebration. So let me put the little party emoji in the chat because we're going to celebrate this thing up.
Man,
Look at that. I put 5.
We're going to drop Matthew off in the town of Turi and let him fend for himself down there. Let's see what this town looks like. It's aggravating.
All right.
It's aggravating to me how nice Finland looks because over here in America, this would look like a junk heap, and for some reason, it's all like nicely organized in the little rows. Like, man, this aggravates me. Like, look at this little building over here. Man, that's kind of aggravating. Like, it's in the middle of nowhere, and it still looks pretty nice. But with that, thank you so much for the support. To a Finnish Jaeger. From the Enforcer to a Finnish Jaeger. Thank you so much once again. I hope we addressed that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one is from Ty Andrews, who puts in a $5 donation and says the United States has sent 1,155mm shells, 1,600 Stingers, 85,000 Javelins, 1,800 Ghost Drones, 38 high mobility ARS, 32 billion total so far. And I think we sent way more than 32 billion. I think we sent somewhere close to
100 billion.
70.
I'm not really sure on the exact number, but I do thank you for the support and sharing that with us, and it's great to know that the United States has provided such an extensive list of things to help out the Ukrainian army. And so with that, we're on to the next one, and thank you once again for the support.
And the next one goes to Dark Warrior 137, who puts in a 5 and says, holding a difficult position is like paying a subscription. You continuously pay for it. Withdrawing for later would be like making a one-time payment.
And that's true. And I thank you for the support, and that's a pretty smart way to put it right there. I really don't have a lot to add to that. That's just a great way to word it. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that addresses the comment fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Pivot, who puts in a 5 and says, with the advent of cheap drones being used in warfare, do you think nations should start investing into newer gun-based AA platforms like the Gepard?
I think they should, because we're seeing that drone warfare makes surface-to-air missiles somewhat expensive to use. And also, we saw a new strategy being used by the Azerbaijanis in the Nagorno-Karabakh war that also shows that gun-based anti-air systems may still be relevant in the modern day. So I think they should start investing in those. They are cheap, so it should be easy to do. So with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope I addressed that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $5 super chat from Craig Platel, who says Wagner has opened recruitment offices in 42 cities. Not sure how many he'll be able to recruit, though.
Probably not many, because a lot of people in Russia probably know of the suicide stories of the Wagner unit and probably don't want to join a suicide force. They'd rather get conscripted in the Russian army and then find out there's still a suicide force, but not knowing it until then. So with that, I thank you so much for the support. I hope that does address that fairly well and very interesting to hear. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a $5 super chat from Dark Warrior 137, who says, I'm trying to learn Morse code starting as of 10 minutes ago. Gonna make it a goal of being able to decode them at the start of the stream after a while.
Hey, and thank you for the support. Really cool to hear that you're going to be undergoing how to listen to Morse or learning how to read it. And I've got to tell you.
How to listen to it.
Yeah, how to listen
Put
to
your
it.
ears up.
I got to tell you, the first step of listening to it is to open your ears, you idiot. But still, moving on from that, really cool to hear that you will be doing that. Hopefully, you will be joining our Morse code deciphers here in the future, because that is a pretty cool thing, a little knack to have. And so with that, thank you for the support. I hope we addressed that fairly well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $5 super chat from Epic Trains Canada, who says, I'm technically Canadian, but I identify as an Amerifati. Igor in Slav Ukraine.
Igor! And welcome to the team of Amerifatis. Russians hate us because we can be obese in our free time. They can't, because they can't afford it. But moving on from that, they also don't like the Amerifati because the Amerifati has it easy in life. The Russians, they don't. So with that, thank you so much once again for the support, Epic Trains Canada, and also for joining the Amerifati team. And with that, we are on to the next one. Thank you once again for the support, and a pretty funny one.
Yes, indeed. And up next, we have a $5 super chat from JC Atkins, who says, just keep doing what you do, young dudes. Screw those huffers.
Man, waste the effers. But anyway, thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And we will just keep doing what we're doing. But, you know, I gotta say this. No comedian has ever been able to go without getting back at a heckler. No one ever has ever gone without getting back at a heckler. It's just...
There's been some flame downs for people getting back at hecklers. I remember that guy, that Kramer guy, he had a flame down knowing what.
Ooh, well, that's not the kind of getting back at hecklers we're doing here. But anyways, getting back at hecklers, I would say, is kind of normal, except for that one, though, because that one was not normal at all.
No, Kramer went off the rails.
Kramer went insane. He literally went insane. Like,
and then the apology afterward was like...
Oh, the apology made it worse, because it was just so... Anyways, it was almost like he was in the Kramer character when he was doing it. Anyways, it was just bad. I can't even go over that one anymore, because everything about that one was so bad. It's laughable. But anyways, you gotta get back at hecklers sometimes, and we try and do it every once in a while. And one thing that makes it really hard not to get back at hecklers is when another channel starts to heckle you when you've never really had a problem with them. You know, because that's what's really like rekindled our like heckler thing, is that they say stuff. A lot of the people who've been exiled from the Lee Spring Army end up there kind of like it's the penal colony, and then, you know, they sit there and say stuff about us, and then that channel says stuff about us, and then they send people back over here, and so then they're saying stuff, and then, you know, it makes you shoot down the hecklers, and then also there's, you know, a guy over there who's like keeping it going, you know. And what's funny is that we made it clear it was a misunderstanding the first time with this guy. Apparently he thought we were talking about him when we weren't. And then he sent an email pretty much admitting that he did what we said he did, although we were talking about someone else completely different. And then after that, we cleared that up. I tried to reach out to him, and he ignored us for a whole month. And then a month after the last time I messaged him, then he wants to come back and act like, you know, everything was fine. Like, what, like, you know, I said, Matthew, we would never really address that much, but I would send that guy a message 3 times in a day, like one after the other with no response, to finally get one response that was dismissive and would blow me off. And I did that for a month. And then I finally just gave up. And so then he
was treating us like 2 kids that he didn't have time for, until he heard all the guests we were going to have on the podcast and how that was going to go, and then all of a sudden he was all over it.
And here's another thing. This is the part that annoys me the most, because because, you know, we've looked at his story, you know, that he told y'all, but I sat there and scheduled a call with him on a Sunday night after a Sunday fundraiser to talk to him about joining the podcast. I didn't say that in message, though. I said, I just want to talk to you, build a rapport or something like that. Schedule it for Sunday. He says, okay, cool. That was in a week in advance. So I check with him, say, hey, you getting on the call? Never responds to that. Sunday night comes around. I start the call. He's playing Escape from Tarkov. And I sit there and say, like in the messages, hang on, I'll be back, because I went to the restroom. Then I came back. he never picked up the call. 5 minutes later, Discord drops the call because you can only be on a call for yourself for 5 minutes. And then I said, okay, we'll reschedule sometime. Next time he says something like, what's this call about anyways? He sends a message like that, like it's not worth his time. And then after all that happens, I sit there and say, all right, great talk or something like that. A month goes by, we announce the podcast, and then he says, oh, everything was going great with us. We were talking perfectly fine, and I'm trying to get on the show now. It's like, obviously you're not getting on the show at that point because you blew us off. You know, like that's the real story of what happened over here. But anyways.
And then he got hurt because he didn't get to come on the show because he blew us off. And then he resorted to defaming us as a payback.
Yeah, and trying to defame us for one reason or another. That's the whole story, actually. But, you know, Magic Guy, just let it all go. The
Enforcer loves to go through this story. He loves to recount this one.
Well, no, that's pretty much the whole story. We've never really said it that unfiltered before. But yeah, that's the gist. We're gonna drop it, but one thing I can guarantee you though, Magic Sky Girl, is that we will probably hear about this again. Someone will be coming over here saying, "Oh, so and so said something," and we're gonna be like, "Oh, great," you know. It never ends because we try and drop it and then it just comes up again for some reason over there. But with that, we're moving on into the next one.
All right. So after we have that little chat there, we have a $5 super chat from Craig Platel who says, by the way, if you want to be cool, you can call it a Sea Whiz and the Phalanx R2D2.
And thank you for the support. And that does kind of sound cool to call it R2D2. It does kind of look like R2D2, doesn't it, Matthew?
I think so.
Yeah, it kind of does. Look at that. Wait, hang on. I put that in wrong. See? It looks like it.
It does. It really does.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So with that, thank you for the support and suggesting that to us. I might call it R2D2 from now on. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again for the support.
All right, and up next, we have a $5 super chat from TTCMZX, who says, I couldn't get the message on the super chat, but it's asking about subs in the Black Sea and the missiles from there.
I don't know if there are submarines launching off the missiles. Well, usually we see the surface fleet doing it. I've rarely ever seen a submarine firing them off, but they may be. It's just that we don't get any videos of it. So with that, I hope that answers that question somewhat well. And with that, we are on to the next one. Thank you once again.
And the next one goes to Truster1, who puts in a 5 and says, if you guys buy a drone as you planned and the LSA fund goes to a second, is that going to work out better for you? I won't skimp on charity.
And can you reread that one again?
If you guys buy a drone as you planned and the LSA fund goes to a second, is that going to work out better for you? I won't skimp on charity.
And I thank you for the support and the question. And to answer that question, I've got to say this. I thank everyone for supporting the drone fund thing, but the intent of how we run this channel is to never ask for people to send money directly to us to do anything, because our channel runs off of transparency being the #1 criteria, and support and super chats goes to us to help us to keep this thing running, and then we run Sunday fundraisers to help save lives in Ukraine and actually help out the Ukrainians. And that makes it very transparent because we can add up the fundraiser. You'll physically see the amount being fundraised. It's run through YouTube Give, so it's incredibly safe. They do all the accounting. We can't touch a dime. If we do stuff like that through super chats, it throws in a lot of murkiness to what's happening with that support. Of course, we're going to get a drone for them. We were going to buy the drone for them whether we got support for a drone fund or not, because we just feel like they are owed it. They deserve it. They're Ukrainian soldiers that are out there fighting, and they asked us for something. We have to get it for them. But we never want to make this a norm. And of course, we'll make an exception this one time for everyone sending in super chat saying it goes to the drone fund. We will make an exception for that and do that this one time, considering that kind of happened out of our control, although we didn't really think that was going to happen. And then people started sending in super chats. We're like, oh no. But we will do it, but I always want to make sure that our fundraising is transparent as possible. And that's why we only run things through YouTube Give. And that's why you'll only find them run on official dates, like our Sunday fundraisers, or on the year anniversary, it was a Friday. So with that, I hope that answers that fairly well. Thank you so much once again for the support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And also, speaking of giving stuff to folks, We did get the flag, the battle flag from the giveaway sent off, and also the plane. The flag is heading to California, and the plane is heading to Canada. So they are on the way, and we can't wait to see when they finally arrive. And hopefully, the winners will take pictures of it and show us, because that'd be really cool to see it in the hands of the winners. But anyways, up next we have a $2 donation from Dupper Bob, who says, "Slava Ukraine."
And Slava Ukraini. And thank you so much for the consistent support, Dupper Bob. I don't think Dupper Bob has missed a single night of supporting this channel. I gotta thank you so much for that, because I think you have the running record. And so with that, thank you once again. I hope that addresses that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one. Also, Paula, you asked who won. Roy Cooper won the first one. He won the flag. And then I'm forgetting the second person, because Roy won.
Let me go grab my letter.
Yeah, Roy won, and then Roy said, "I don't want the plane. I just want the flag."
Roy is the fella that got the plane. It was Brent Barker. He's the guy that won the flag and the plane.
Yeah. So, and then he wanted the plane to go on to someone else. So then we picked Roy Cooper to win the plane. So we actually had 2 winners for that competition, because the first winner was so generous to allow the second prize to be given to another person. So that was incredibly nice of him. And hopefully they do take pictures of him, and we see where that flag ends up, because I think that's going to be really cool. Watch him auction it off, Matthew, and it's like $50,000 or something like that. I think that would be the coolest thing ever. And hopefully that.
I hope that if they do auction it, I hope they give it to charity, like for a Ukrainian charity.
I hope they do. But with that, we are on to the next one. I hope we addressed that fairly well, Paula.
All right, and up next we have a $2 super chat. You said Paula.
Yeah, Paula asked the question as to who won, and we were answering that question.
Oh, okay. But up next, we have a $2 super chat from Craig Platel, who says, "G is actually." Is this a joke, Craig? He says, "G is actually 69."
What? Wait a minute. No, he's not. What he is? He really is.
That's crazy. I didn't know he was that old.
What the hell? He does not. I'm going to be honest with y'all. He does not look 69, in my opinion.
But Winnie the Pooh only lived till 10.
I know. That's what I'm saying. He's certainly, like, that's crazy. I thought that was honestly a joke, too, Matthew, when he said 69. I was like, no way. No, he's not. He really is, though. Also, that is a bad picture of him right there. Like, dang. Like, could they take any worse of a picture?
Is that man wearing lipstick?
I don't know, but, honey. But anyways, we're on to the next one. And thank you once again for the support. No, wait a minute, Matthew, that's a street name. He goes out there and goes, honey. But anyways, we're on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $2 super chat from Walter A. Lakota Jr. Once again, he says, "Me again. Fact. News is north, east, west, south."
And thank you so much for the support. And you're right. Yeah, it is. So that we're on to the next one. Thank you for sharing that fun little fact with us. I never thought about news like that. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again for the support.
And we're moving on to our live chat questions. And up first, we have the Morse code decoders of the stream, JP's RCs, Mark Hodges, C-Fay, Cliff Simonson, and also Rumpelstiltskin. They said the Morse code says, Enforcer, what the hell is this?
Just read it off, man. Just read it off.
There, I sent it to you DMs.
Oh, dang. Hang on. Let's see here. Let me go to my DMs. Hang on. Let me do it in the right way.
The nutsack has been cut off from the devil. I repeat, the nutsack has been cut off from the devil.
Y'all got it correct. And in case y'all are wondering, wow, that sounds really messed up. It means that Prigozhin has been cut off from Putin. That's what it means. What?
Oh, I was trying to figure out what that meant, but that makes sense.
Well, you know, we call Prigozhin the nutsack. We call Putin the devil. So the nutsack has been cut off from the devil.
Okay, that makes sense.
So, y'all got that right. And thank you for deciphering that Morse code message. I'm sure that one was a wild trip tonight, but I hope y'all understood what it meant. I don't think anyone did. But with that, we're on to the next one.
And up next, we have a question from Carl Hacker, who says, any word on the Lend-Lease?
Any word on the Lend-Lease? A lot. There's a constant Lend-Lease going on, and the Russians are also helping out a little bit by giving over some tanks and armor every once in a while. And so with that, I hope that addresses that fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
All right. And the next one goes to Ronald Minch, who says, is Russia using Bakhmut as a delay to give Crimea time to dig in?
I don't think so. I think they were supposed to have a lightning offensive in Bakhmut, and it's now dragged on way longer than they hoped. At least that's what we're seeing. And so with that, I hope that answers that question fairly well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And up next, we have a question from Paula McDonald. And look, Paula, it's your question. She says, Enforcer Matt, does Enforcer think that Saudi Arabia and Iran signing treaty in China is a problem? I'm concerned about the power struggle.
I think it is a little bit of a problem because it shows that there are growing relations in between some of the Middle Eastern countries and China, meaning that the Silk Road project may actually come to fruition, and we may see that the Chinese are actually able to realize the sphere of influence around the Indian Ocean. The only way we can counter this is by by first kicking the Russians out of the area of Sevastopol with the Black Sea Fleet so that way they don't have an operational navy. So we can do whatever we want in the Middle East. We can make sure that the the diplomatic connections there are strong, and we can also use the Sri Lankans' deep water port here in the Kodiar Bay, I believe it is. Let me look around and make sure it is. Yeah, I think it is the Kodiar Bay. The Kodiar Bay and also India itself to thwart the sphere of influence and make sure that it's not complete. So that's one way we can do that, but it's still an alarming situation nonetheless, in my opinion. So with that, I hope that answers that question, and we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a super chat. We have a $10 donation from Lady Justice, who says, could the Russians get Moldova through Transnistria? And I'm sure the spelling is incorrect. And it's all good because I mess it up all the time too, but thank you very much for the support.
It's all good, Lady Justice. That's a pretty funny name. I like it. It's all fine. Transnistria is a tough thing to spell, so don't worry about it at all. I get what you're saying. The Russians couldn't really get Moldova through Transnistria right now because there's no way to supply or reinforce those soldiers if for some reason things go from bad to worse. So not really, in my opinion, but I could be proven wrong. So with that, I hope that answers that question fairly well. Thank you for the support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Bradley Barrows. It's another super chat, this time from, what am I saying? We have a $10 donation from Bradley Barrows. And he says, Slava Ukraine. Choose a question from the live chat.
And thank you for the support, Bradley, and helping this channel to keep on running. Of course, Slava Ukraine. And let's get a question from the live chat.
And the question from the live chat goes to Jorge M. Rivera, who says, guys, do you never thought how Ukrainian people feel when watching their house explode under artillery?
We always think about that, and that's why we run fundraisers on this channel to help out those folks, whether they've been displaced from their homes, whether they're still near the front lines, whether they've been wounded by Russian shelling and strikes. That's why we help out a wide variety of fundraisers over there to help them out, because while we always keep a light and airy tone on this channel, war is a very dreadful thing, and I hope for this war to end soon, even if this channel just dies after the war, because, you know, we don't really move on to anything else successfully. I would much rather see this war end sooner than see it drag on, because it's terrible. It's completely awful, and we do think about that a lot. It's just that we don't want to ever cry in front of everyone in the world about that, because it's just a fact of life right now, and what would be better is to keep spirits high, keep everything trucking, and get this war ended quicker, so that way we don't have to see this kind of suffering and devastation for much longer. And so with that, I hope that answers that question fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one. Actually, I think this is the second to last one of the night, by the way.
All right, and this one goes to Trister1, who says, what role will India play in these Russia and Chinese NATO stuff?
What role will Russia play in the Chinese NATO stuff? Is that what he said?
Yes.
Not much. They pretty much have outed themselves.
No, wait a minute. Hold on. Oh, he said, what role will India play in these Russia and Chinese NATO stuff?
India appears to be a little bit of a maverick down there, because the Indians aren't really fans of the Chinese, and they're neutral to the Russians. But considering that the Chinese are their more direct threat, they'll probably end up aligning with the United States like we've been seeing over the past few years. We've seen Modi being entertained here in the U.S., by several presidents at this point, because all of these presidents are trying to grow a relationship with the Indians, because they are a way to thwart Chinese power growth. With the Russians, however, I don't know how that's going to go. That's going to be a little odd. I guess we'll kind of turn a blind eye to that, but it seems as though if the Indians ally with the United States, they're probably going to be distancing from all of their previous friends and joining the Western world as a whole, kind of end up like South Korea or Japan, which are somewhat similar in their stance right now. So with that, I hope that answers that question fairly well, at least in my opinion. And with that, we are on to the final question of the night. And so, who is the lucky last person to make a lucky last question of the night?
And that viewer is Abu Verbi, who says, how do you like that Finland is coming near joining NATO?
I like to hear it. It's good to know that they are getting closer to joining NATO. It seems like it's been forever, and it has almost been a year since this process started. But hopefully they'll finally be able to enter those last processes of joining NATO, and Finland and Sweden will both become members. I think that'll be something great, and I think they'll definitely be cornering the Russians even further in their power growth and expansion back westwards into Eastern Europe. And so with that, I hope that answers that question fairly well, and that rounds out tonight's stream. Thank you all so much once again, everyone, for watching tonight's stream. It's been an absolute pleasure knowing that so many of y'all have found this news to be worthwhile. I hope y'all have enjoyed this question segment, and if y'all did, make sure to subscribe, make sure to like, make sure to comment, because we run this stream every single day of the week. Well, except for Mondays. 6 days a week at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, covering the past 24 hours of the war in Ukraine every single day in video and picture evidence. Thank you all so much once again for watching. Have a great night. Stay safe. Take care. And of course, Slava Ukraini.
And Slava Ukraine, Herom Slava. Good night.
Yes.
The Leaf Street Army sends its regards.
Ще не вмерла України ні слава, ні воля. Ще нам, браття українці, усміхнеться доля. Згинуть наші вороженьки, як роса на сонці. Запануємо ми, браття, у своїй сторонці. Душу й тіло ми положим за нашу свободу і покажем, що ми браття козацького роду. Душу й тіло ми положим за нашу свободу і покажем, що